The night Dr. Lyra Vale discovered her neighbor was a crime lord, she had a gun pressed against her temple and his blood splattered across her scrubs. 3 hours earlier, she'd been suturing a 12-year-old stab wound. Now she was watching Kazimir Volkov execute 2 men in his penthouse while explaining, with terrifying calm, why loving him meant she could never leave Chicago alive. This is the story of a surgeon who saved lives by day and fell for a monster by night. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and let's begin. Rain came down like bullets against the windows of Chicago Memorial Hospital, each drop exploding against glass already streaked with weeks of autumn storms. Inside Operating Room 7, Dr. Lyra Vale's hands moved with mechanical precision through a mess of torn intestine and clotted blood, while machines beeped their monotonous rhythm around her. The kid on the table couldn't have been older than 13, had taken a switchblade to the gut during a dispute over territory that didn't belong to either gang involved. Standard Saturday night in this part of the city. Suction, Lyra said, voice flat. The surgical tech complied without comment. They'd worked together long enough that words were mostly unnecessary, especially during cases like this where the outcome was already written in the amount of blood pooling on the floor beneath the table. Lyra's attending, Dr. Rashid Chen, stood across from her with the exhausted patience of a man who'd seen this exact scenario play out hundreds of times. BP's dropping again. I see it. Lyra, I said I see it. Her fingers worked faster, tying off bleeders that kept sprouting like weeds in a garden nobody wanted. The kid's name was Marcus. She'd heard his mother screaming it in the hallway before security escorted her to the waiting room. Marcus, who played basketball. Marcus, who wanted to be an engineer. Marcus, who made one stupid choice on the wrong corner, and now his insides were decorating her operating table. The monitor's tone changed. Long, sustained beep that meant exactly what everyone in the room already knew. Call it, Dr. Chen said quietly. Lyra's jaw clenched. No, charging paddles. Lyra. He's gone. You did everything you could. Her hands froze above the open abdomen, still holding blood-slick instruments that suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds each. Somewhere behind her mask, her expression remained perfectly neutral. The same face she'd learned to construct during medical school when professors praised her exceptional composure under pressure. They meant it as a compliment. She'd always wondered if they realized how much it cost to build that kind of armor. Time of death? 2347, she said. Each word came out mechanical, professional, empty. Dr. Chen touched her shoulder briefly before leaving the OR. The nurses began their post-mortem routine with practiced efficiency, cleaning up the wreckage of failed salvation, while Lyra stood there wondering, not for the first time that month, why she bothered anymore. 30 hours. That's how long she'd been on shift when she finally stumbled out of the hospital into rain that had somehow gotten worse. The parking garage elevator was broken again, which meant 5 flights of stairs and scrubs that still had Marcus's blood dried into the fabric along her left sleeve. Her car, a decade-old Honda with temperamental brakes, refused to start for a full minute before the engine finally turned over with a sound like mechanical resentment. The drive home blurred into streetlights and windshield wipers. Chicago at midnight looked like a different city than the one she'd grown up in. Darker, hungrier, full of shadows that moved with purpose. She'd stopped seeing beauty in it somewhere around her second year of residency, right after her first pediatric gunshot victim. Now it was just infrastructure. Buildings and pavement and people trying to survive until morning. Her apartment building stood in a neighborhood that real estate agents called transitional, which meant gentrification hadn't quite finished pushing out the poverty yet. Lyra had lived here for 3 years, ever since her residency salary finally allowed her to escape the nightmare of medical school roommates. The lobby smelled like old carpet and the cleaning solution the superintendent used every Thursday. The elevator wheezed upward with sounds that suggested imminent mechanical failure. Floor 7. Her floor. She didn't notice him at first, just a shape leaning against the hallway wall near her door. Exhaustion had narrowed her vision to tunnel width, focused entirely on the 30 feet between elevator and apartment and the bed waiting inside. Then his hand caught her wrist. Not rough, almost gentle, but the grip was unmistakably firm. Careful, Doc, he said. You're swaying like you're about to drop. Lyra's head snapped up, adrenaline briefly burning through the fog of fatigue. Recognition followed half a second later. Kieran Voss, apartment 7G. Her neighbor for the past 7 months. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that always looked deliberately unstyled, and a face that belonged in cologne advertisements. The kind of handsome that felt almost aggressive in its perfection, like someone had designed him specifically to make women forget their own names. He wore expensive casual clothes, dark jeans, fitted black shirt, leather jacket that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "I'm fine," Lyra said, pulling her wrist free. "Long shift. 30 hours by my count." Kieran's smile was easy, familiar. "Saw you leave yesterday morning. Figured you'd be dragging when you got back." Something in Lyra's chest tightened, not quite alarm, but adjacent to it. "You keep track of my schedule." "I keep track of everything." He said it casually, like admitting he noticed the weather. "Coffee's already brewing in my place. You look like you need it more than I do." This was how Kieran operated, always observing, always appearing exactly when circumstances turned difficult. 3 months ago, her building's heat had died during a January cold snap. Kieran had shown up at her door with spare blankets and a space heater before she'd even called maintenance. Last month, when her car wouldn't start in the parking garage, he'd been there with jumper cables before she finished cursing at the ignition. Helpful, attentive, impossibly convenient. Lyra had learned not to trust convenient. "I'm good," she said, moving toward her door. "Thanks anyway." "Lyra." His voice stopped her. Not commanding, just weighted with something she couldn't identify. "When's the last time you ate?" She couldn't remember. Breakfast, maybe? Yesterday's breakfast? "I'll order something." "You'll pass out before the delivery arrives." Kieran pushed off the wall, moving with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent serious time in expensive gyms. 10 minutes, coffee, and whatever's in my fridge? Then I'll leave you alone." Every instinct Lyra had developed over years of navigating Chicago's streets told her to refuse. But exhaustion had eroded her usual defenses, and the truth was she probably would pass out if she didn't get food soon. 10 minutes, she agreed. Kieran's apartment was exactly what she'd expected. Modern, expensive, aggressively masculine in its minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked designed rather than bought, kitchen with appliances that probably cost more than most people's cars. What she didn't expect was the faint chemical smell beneath the coffee aroma, something sharp, antiseptic almost. "Sit," Kieran said, gesturing to a bar stool at the kitchen island. "How do you take it?" "Black, 2 sugars." He poured without looking, muscle memory guiding his hands, which meant he'd already known how she took her coffee. Of course he had. Kieran knew everything. The first sip hit Lyra's system like a small miracle. Good coffee, the expensive kind she couldn't justify on a resident's salary. She wrapped both hands around the mug, letting heat seep into fingers that had been cold since leaving the OR. "Rough night?" Kieran asked, leaning against the counter across from her. "Kid died on my table, 13 years old, stabbed over nothing. Marcus Williams. Southside Disciples got him on Kedzie Avenue around 9:30. Kieran's voice remained neutral, conversational. Rival crew suspected he was moving into their territory. Lyra's head snapped up. "How the hell do you know that?" "I pay attention to what happens in this city." Kieran met her stare without flinching. "You work in trauma surgery. These things intersect. That's not paying attention. That's—" She stopped, suddenly aware of how isolated she was in this apartment with a man she barely knew. "What exactly do you do, Kieran?" "Consulting." "That's not an answer." "It's the one I'm giving you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Eat something. You're still swaying." He placed a plate in front of her, leftover pasta from somewhere expensive, still good cold. Lyra's stomach reminded her she was starving. She ate mechanically, aware of Kieran watching her with an intensity that felt like physical weight. "Why do you do this?" she asked between bites. "Make pasta?" "Show up. Help. Pay attention to my schedule like it's your job." Kieran was quiet for a long moment, something shifting behind his expression. "Maybe I like having someone to pay attention to. You could pay attention to anyone. I've seen the women who visit you." Lyra had. Tall. Beautiful. Always leaving in the early morning hours with that specific kind of satisfied exhaustion. "Those aren't attention, that's maintenance." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. No charm, no deflection, just flat statement of fact. I should go, Lyra said, standing too quickly. Exhaustion and caffeine warred in her bloodstream, making the room tilt slightly. Kieran caught her elbow, steadying her. You're dead on your feet. I'm fine. You're not. His grip tightened fractionally. When's your next shift? 48 hours. Then sleep here. Guest room's made up. You'll collapse trying to make it back to your apartment. Every alarm in Lyra's head started screaming. Absolutely not. Why? You think I'm going to do something? Kieran's voice dropped lower, taking on an edge she'd never heard before. If I wanted to do something, Doc, I'd have done it months ago. The temperature in the room changed, subtle but unmistakable. Let go of me, Lyra said quietly. Kieran's fingers opened immediately. I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to control. She grabbed her bag, moving toward the door. Thanks for the coffee. She made it 3 steps before he spoke again. You have no idea what kind of city you're living in, do you? Lyra turned. Excuse me? Chicago, this neighborhood, that hospital where you spend your nights putting kids back together. Kieran's expression had shifted into something harder, colder. You walk around like the world operates on logic and effort, like violence is just an unfortunate variable in an otherwise rational system. And you think you understand it better? I know I do. He moved closer, not threatening, but suddenly the space between them felt charged with voltage. You want to know what I do for a living, Lyra? I manage the variables you pretend don't exist, the ones that determine whether Marcus Williams gets stabbed on Kedzie Avenue, the ones that decide which neighborhoods get protection and which get sacrificed. I make the calls that let you sleep at night thinking medicine matters. Lyra's pulse kicked up. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you see. Kieran was close enough now that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, wrong for this moment. You've been walking past me for 7 months like I'm just another neighbor, smiling in elevators, making small talk about weather, never once asking yourself why a man like me lives in a building like this. A man like you, someone who could afford to live anywhere in Chicago, who chooses to stay in a transitional neighborhood where trauma surgeons rent 1-bedroom apartments. His eyes held hers. You're not stupid, Lyra. Stop acting like you are. She should leave. Every survival instinct screamed at her to walk out that door and never come back. But something else, something reckless born from exhaustion and months of swallowing grief, made her stand her ground. Fine, Lyra said. Tell me. What are you really? Kieran smiled, and for the first time she saw something predatory in it. I'm the reason your hospital gets its trauma cases in predictable patterns. I'm why certain gang territories stay stable while others explode into war. I'm the infrastructure you don't want to acknowledge because it would shatter your illusion that saving lives matters. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman. Crime is just economics without regulation. That's a rationalization. That's reality. He reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed along her jaw. You know what I think, Doc? I think you've been driving yourself into the ground for years, trying to save a city that doesn't want to be saved. I think you're exhausted. I think you're lonely. And I think some part of you has been waiting for someone to notice. Lyra's breath caught. You don't know anything about me. I know you take your coffee black with 2 sugars. I know you work doubles every weekend. I know you haven't had a visitor to your apartment in the entire time you've lived here. I know you stand on your balcony at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep, and I know you cry sometimes after bad shifts because I hear it through the walls. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I know everything about you, Lyra, and I've been patient, but my patience has limits. She should be terrified, should run, should scream. Instead, she heard herself whisper, What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done pretending to be your friendly neighbor. I'm done watching you kill yourself for people who'll never appreciate it. I'm done waiting for you to notice that I've been orbiting you like a satellite since the day you moved in. His other hand came up to frame her face. I want you. I've wanted you for months. And tonight, you're finally too tired to pretend you haven't noticed. Lyra's pulse hammered against her throat. This is insane. Probably. You just admitted you're a criminal. I admitted I'm realistic about how the world works. I should leave. You should. Kieran's thumb brushed over her lower lip. But you won't. He was right. God help her. He was right. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was months of restrained obsession finally detonating, hungry and demanding and edged with something that felt like violence. Lyra's exhausted brain tried to catalog the wrongness of this, the danger, the thousand reasons to stop. But her body had already surrendered. She kissed him back with equal hunger, fingers tangling in his hair while his hands gripped her waist hard enough to bruise. 7 months of tension compressed into pure physical need. He tasted like coffee and mint, and the kind of danger that smart people avoided. Kieran lifted her onto the kitchen counter without breaking the kiss, stepping between her legs while his hands mapped her body with possessive certainty. No hesitation, no asking permission, just taking what he'd apparently decided belonged to him. Lyra should stop this. Should think. Should... His mouth moved to her neck, teeth grazing her pulse point. Tell me to stop. Words died in her throat as his hand slid beneath her scrubs. Say it, Lyra. Tell me you don't want this. She couldn't, because the truth was, she did want this. Wanted something that felt real and raw after years of swallowing everything she felt into a void of professional competence. Wanted to stop being Dr. Vale who saved lives and never fell apart. Wanted to be just Lyra for once, making a terrible decision because it felt good rather than because it was right. Don't stop, she whispered. Kieran's control shattered. He carried her to the bedroom, some massive space with windows overlooking the city's glittering sprawl. Lyra barely registered details. Her scrubs hit the floor. His clothes followed. Then they were just bodies in expensive sheets, moving with desperate urgency that bypassed everything rational. Afterwards, she lay in the dark, listening to rain hammer against glass, while Kieran's fingers traced idle patterns across her shoulder blade. Her brain slowly rebooted, processing what she'd just done with the clinical detachment she usually reserved for autopsies. Slept with her neighbor, her criminal neighbor. Her criminal neighbor who just admitted to orchestrating violence across Chicago while making her feel more seen than anyone had in years. I can hear you thinking, Kieran said quietly. I should go. You should sleep. You're still exhausted. Lyra sat up, reaching for her scrubs. This was a mistake. His hand caught her wrist, not forceful, but immovable. Was it? You're a criminal. I'm a doctor. This doesn't work. Why not? Because I save lives, and you... She stopped, suddenly aware of how little she actually knew about what he did. What exactly do you do, Kieran? I told you. I manage variables. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He pulled her back down, arms wrapping around her with surprising gentleness. Sleep, Lyra. We'll fight about morality in the morning. She should leave. Should establish boundaries. Should salvage whatever professional distance remained between them. Instead, she let exhaustion win. Her eyes closed, body relaxing against his while rain continued its assault on the windows. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Kieran stood at the windows wearing sweatpants and nothing else, phone pressed to his ear while he spoke in rapid Russian. Lyra recognized the language from hospital translators, but couldn't follow the conversation. Something about shipments and territory and someone named Victor who apparently needed to be handled. When he noticed her awake, Kieran's expression shifted back into that easy charm. Gotta go, he said into the phone, then switched to English. Coffee's ready. How do you take it? You already know how I take it. Lyra sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. Who's Victor? Business associate. What kind of business? The kind we're not discussing before caffeine. He brought her a mug, black with 2 sugars, exactly right. Sleep okay? Kieran, drink first, interrogate later. Lyra accepted the coffee mostly because her body demanded it. The first sip bought her enough clarity to realize how catastrophically she'd derailed her life in the past 8 hours. This can't happen again, she said. Why not? Because I barely know you. Because you're clearly involved in something illegal. Because I have a career that requires basic ethical standards. And yet here you are. Kieran sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but giving her space. Want to know what I think? Not particularly. I think you're terrified of wanting something that isn't approved by your internal ethics committee. I think you've been so busy being the perfect doctor that you forgot how to be human. And I think last night was the first time in years you let yourself feel something without apologizing for it. The accuracy stung. You don't know me. I know you better than you think. His fingers traced her ankle through the sheet. I know you're brilliant and exhausted and drowning in a job that's killing you slowly. I know you haven't had anyone actually see you, not Dr. Vale, but Lyra, in longer than you want to admit, and I know that scares you more than anything I might be involved in professionally. Lyra set down the coffee before she threw it at him. This is manipulation. This is honesty. You're just not used to it. I'm leaving. Okay. He stood, moving to the window. But you'll be back. Incredibly presumptuous. Incredibly accurate. Kieran glanced over his shoulder, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You felt it too, Lyra. Don't pretend you didn't. She gathered her scrubs in silence, dressing quickly while trying to ignore how right he was. Because she had felt it, that electric recognition of finding someone who saw past the armor she'd built. The walk back to her apartment felt like crossing continents. Lyra showered away the evidence of last night, changed into clean clothes, and tried to convince herself this was an isolated incident born from exhaustion and poor judgment. Her phone buzzed. Text from the hospital. Dr. Chen requesting her presence for an emergency case in 2 hours. Back to reality. Back to being Dr. Vale who saved lives and never made mistakes. Except now she couldn't stop thinking about Kieran's hands. His voice. The way he'd looked at her like she was the only real thing in a city full of shadows. The next 48 hours blurred into a rotation of surgeries, patient rounds, and forced normalcy. Lyra threw herself into work with renewed intensity, trying to bury the memory of what happened in that penthouse apartment. It almost worked. Until she came home from another overnight shift and found Kieran leaning against her door. We need to talk, he said. There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. He pushed off the wall, moving into her space with that predatory grace. You're avoiding me. I'm working. You're hiding. Lyra's temper flared. What do you want from me, Kieran? A relationship? Because that's not happening. You're a criminal who won't even tell me what you actually do. And I'm a trauma surgeon who can't afford to be associated with The elevator doors opened behind them. 3 men in expensive suits stepped out, and the temperature in the hallway dropped 20 degrees. Kieran's entire demeanor shifted. The charming neighbor vanished, replaced by something cold and dangerous. He moved in front of Lyra with fluid speed, body language screaming violence. Casimir, one of the men said. Russian accent thick enough to cut. Your father wants to see you. Casimir, not Kieran. Lyra's brain stuttered over the name while her neighbor, her criminal neighbor who apparently had an entirely different identity, responded in rapid Russian. The conversation was terse, aggressive, ending with the 3 men returning to the elevator while shooting meaningful glances at Lyra. When they were gone, Kieran, Casimir, whatever his name was, turned back to her with an expression she couldn't read. Inside, he said quietly. Now. I don't think... Lyra. Inside. Please. The please did it. Lyra unlocked her door, and Kieran followed her into the small apartment that suddenly felt impossibly claustrophobic. Who are you? She asked. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out her window at the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, empty. My name is Casimir Volkov. My father is Viktor Volkov. We run the largest criminal syndicate in the Midwest. He turned to face her. And those men who just saw you, they now know you exist, which means you're in danger. The words didn't process at first. Too big, too absurd. You're joking. I've never been less funny in my life. Casimir moved closer. The Volkov syndicate controls gambling, weapons trafficking, black market shipping lanes across 3 states. We have people in law enforcement, city government, federal agencies. And we're currently in the middle of a territorial dispute with the Serbian organizations that would love nothing more than to find a weakness in our operation. And I'm a weakness. You're the weakness. The only one that matters. His hands framed her face. I should have stayed away from you, should have kept my distance, but I couldn't. And now you're visible to people who will absolutely use you to hurt me. Lyra stepped back, mind reeling. This is insane. You're insane. I'm calling... Who? The police? Casimir's laugh was bitter. Half the department is on our payroll. You think calling them helps? Then I'll leave. Disappear. Go somewhere you can't. They already have your name, your address, probably your entire medical history by now. He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed for the first time since she'd met him. There's nowhere you can go that I can't find you, and if I can find you, so can they. The walls felt like they were closing in. What are you saying? I'm saying the only thing keeping you alive right now is the fact that I've publicly claimed you as mine, that those men saw me protecting you, that my father's organization now knows you matter to me. His eyes held hers. I'm saying you belong to my world now, Lyra, whether you want to or not. No. She shook her head, backing away. No, I'm not part of whatever this is. I'm a doctor. I save lives. I don't. You slept with a monster. That's the price. The bluntness of it hit like a physical blow. Lyra's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on her couch, brain trying to process the magnitude of how completely she'd destroyed her life in a single night. Casimir knelt in front of her, hands on her knees. I know this is a lot. I know you're terrified. But I need you to listen very carefully, because your survival depends on understanding what happens next. I don't want to understand. I want this to not be real. It is real, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. His grip tightened. My father will want to meet you, evaluate you as a liability. Other families will test whether you're actually under my protection or just convenient leverage, and you need to be prepared for all of it. I can't, Lyra's voice cracked. I can't do this. I have a life, a career. I'm supposed to be in surgery in 4 hours. Say. Then you'll go to surgery, and I'll make sure you have protection getting there and back. Casimir stood, pulling out his phone. I'm assigning a security team effective immediately. They'll be discreet but visible enough that everyone knows you're watched. Security team? You're giving me a security team? Hysterical laughter bubbled up Lyra's throat. This is a nightmare. This has to be a nightmare. It's not. He crouched down again, forcing her to meet his eyes. But you're going to survive it, because I'm going to make sure you do. Why? The question came out broken. Why do you even care? You barely know me. I know enough. Something shifted in his expression, something almost vulnerable beneath the cold efficiency. You're the first real thing I've encountered in years, Lyra. The first person who looked at me and saw someone worth knowing rather than someone to fear or use. And I'm not letting this city take that away from me. Lyra wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to rewind time 48 hours and make different choices. Instead, she just sat there while Casimir made phone calls in Russian, rearranging her entire life with casual authority. This was her reality now, Dr. Lyra Vale, who saved lives, and the woman who belonged to Chicago's most dangerous criminal. Her phone buzzed. Hospital again. Emergency surgery. Casimir glanced at the screen. I'll drive you. I can drive myself. No, you can't. Not anymore. He grabbed his jacket. Come on. I'll explain security protocols on the way. Lyra stood on numb legs, following him out the door like she was watching herself from outside her body. In the parking garage, a black SUV waited with 2 men in suits standing beside it. Your security team, Casimir said. They'll shadow you everywhere. Don't acknowledge them unless there's a problem. This couldn't be her life, couldn't be real. But as Casimir opened the SUV door and she climbed inside, Lyra realized with sinking certainty that it was. The drive to Chicago Memorial was silent, except for Casimir's occasional phone calls. Lyra stared out the window at streets that looked exactly the same, but felt fundamentally different now that she knew who really controlled them. When they pulled up to the hospital entrance, Casimir caught her hand. I'll be here when your shift ends. Don't leave without me. This is insane. This is survival. Learn the difference. He kissed her knuckles briefly. Go save lives, Doc. That's what you're good at. Lyra stumbled out of the SUV and into the hospital, where Dr. Chen was already waiting with a tablet full of patient information. Back to the familiar rhythm of medicine, trauma bays and operating rooms, and the clean logic of anatomy. Except now she couldn't stop seeing Marcus Williams' face, couldn't stop thinking about Casimir's admission that he controlled which neighborhoods got protection and which got sacrificed. Couldn't stop wondering how many of the patients she'd lost over the years had died because someone like him had decided their lives weren't worth protecting. The surgery went well. Appendectomy on a college kid who'd waited too long to come in. Routine. Easy. The kind of case she could perform in her sleep. But when Lyra scrubbed out and headed to the locker room, she found something waiting in her locker that made her blood freeze. A single black rose, and a note in elegant handwriting. Welcome to the family. Victor. Her hands shook as she read it again. Casimir's father, the man who ran the entire syndicate. He knew where she worked, knew her locker number, could reach her whenever he wanted. Lyra's phone buzzed. Text from Casimir. Get out of the hospital, now. Security team is waiting outside. She didn't argue. The SUV was idling at the entrance. Lyra climbed in to find Casimir already inside, expression dark with barely controlled fury. He contacted you, Casimir said. Not a question. Lyra handed him the note, watched his jaw clench as he read it. Fuck. He crumpled the paper. This is a message. He's establishing that you're accessible, that I can't protect you completely. Can you? Casimir's eyes met hers. I'll die trying. The honesty in his voice made something in Lyra's chest crack open. This was real. The danger was real. And this man, this criminal who'd lied about everything, was offering his life as guarantee of her safety. Where are we going? She asked quietly. My real apartment. The penthouse was a cover. I have a place downtown that's actually secure. He reached for her hand. You'll stay there until I can neutralize Victor's message. I have a shift tomorrow. No, you don't. You're calling in sick effective immediately. I can't just... Lyra, Casimir's voice went hard. My father just demonstrated he can reach you inside the hospital. That means every moment you're outside my direct protection, you're a target. So you're staying with me until I make it clear that touching you means war. The SUV pulled up to a high-rise in downtown Chicago that probably cost more per square foot than Lyra made in a year. Casimir led her through a private entrance, past security that nodded at him with military precision, up an elevator that required biometric identification. The apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, art that belonged in museums. But what caught Lyra's attention were the monitors, dozens of them, showing live feeds from across the city. Welcome to the real Casimir Volkov, he said, watching her take it in. This is who I actually am. Lyra walked to the windows, staring out at Chicago's glittering sprawl. I should hate you. You should. I should have run the moment you admitted what you were. You should have. She turned to face him. Why didn't you let me? Casimir moved closer, stopping just short of touching her. Because I'm selfish. Because I wanted you more than I cared about your safety. Because somewhere in the past 7 months, you became the only thing in this city that felt real, and I couldn't let that go. Even if it destroys me? I won't let it destroy you. That's a promise. Lyra laughed bitterly. You can't promise that. You just said your father can reach me whenever he wants. He can try. I'll make sure he fails. How? Casimir's expression went cold. Calculating. By making you so valuable to the organization that killing you would cost more than keeping you alive. By integrating you so thoroughly into my life that removing you means removing me. By turning you from a liability into an asset. An asset? Lyra's voice went flat. That's what I am to you? No. He cupped her face. You're everything to me. But to them, you need to be an asset. That's how this world works. She should pull away, should maintain some kind of boundary. Instead, she kissed him. Not gently, not romantically, but with all the anger and fear and desperate need for something solid in a reality that had shifted beneath her feet. Casimir kissed back with equal ferocity, hands gripping her waist while he walked her backward toward the bedroom. They fell into expensive sheets again, bodies moving with urgent desperation that had nothing to do with desire and everything to do with trying to prove they were both still real. Afterwards, Lyra lay in the dark listening to Casimir's steady breathing while her mind cataloged every choice that had led her here. Medical school debt that forced her into inner-city hospitals, exhaustion that made her vulnerable, a handsome neighbor who paid attention, a single night of weakness. And now she belonged to a world that would kill her without hesitation. Casimir's phone buzzed. He grabbed it, reading something that made his entire body tense. "What?" Lyra asked. "My father wants to meet you, tomorrow. His estate." Casimir set down the phone. "This is the evaluation I warned you about." "And if I fail?" "You won't." He pulled her against him. "I'll make sure you don't." Lyra closed her eyes, exhaustion finally winning. Tomorrow she would meet the man who controlled Chicago's underworld. Tomorrow she would be evaluated like livestock at auction. But tonight she could pretend for a few more hours that she was just a surgeon who'd made a bad decision about a handsome neighbor. The pretending didn't last long. She woke to Casimir already dressed, standing at the windows while talking on the phone in Russian. When he noticed her awake, he switched to English. "Victor's expecting us at 3. Wear something professional but not aggressive. Think lawyer, not doctor." He handed her coffee. Black, 2 sugars. "My people retrieved clothes from your apartment. They're in the closet." Lyra sat up slowly. "You sent people into my apartment?" "I sent your security team to gather necessities. You'll be staying here indefinitely." "You can't just—" "I can, and I did." Casimir sat on the edge of the bed. "Lyra, I need you to understand something. For the next few hours, you're not Dr. Vale. You're my woman. That means you follow my lead. You don't contradict me in front of Victor, and you absolutely do not show fear." "I'm afraid." "I know, but you can't show it." His hand found hers. "Victor respects strength. If he smells weakness, he'll push until you break. So you need to be steel today. Can you do that?" Lyra thought about every patient she'd lost, every surgery where she'd been the only thing between someone and death, every shift where she'd swallowed her emotions and performed anyway. "Yes," she said, "I can do that." Casimir smiled, genuine this time. "Good. Because you're about to meet the most dangerous man in Chicago." The clothes in the closet were perfect, designer brands that fit like they'd been tailored for her, which they probably had been. Casimir's people apparently worked fast. The drive to Viktor Volkov's estate took an hour, heading north into suburbs that gave way to genuine countryside. The property was enormous. Gates, guards, sprawling mansion that looked like it belonged to European aristocracy. Inside was even more intimidating. Marble floors, priceless art. The kind of wealth that came from decades of violence. Viktor Volkov waited in a study lined with books in multiple languages. He was maybe 60, silver-haired, with eyes that missed nothing. The kind of man who'd built an empire with his bare hands and wasn't interested in mercy. "Father," Casimir said, "this is Dr. Lyra Vale." Victor's gaze fixed on her with predatory focus. "The surgeon. I've read your file." Of course he had. "Sir," Lyra said, keeping her voice steady, "sit." Victor gestured to chairs arranged in front of his desk. "We have much to discuss." What followed was the most terrifying conversation of Lyra's life. Victor questioned her about everything: her family, her education, her debts, her politics, her religion, her friendships, her patient list. He dissected her entire existence with clinical precision, looking for leverage and weakness. Through it all, Lyra kept her spine straight and her answers brief. Steel, like Casimir had said. Finally, Victor leaned back in his chair. "My son has made you a target. Do you understand that?" "Yes." "Do you understand that loving him means living with constant danger?" "I'm beginning to." "And yet you're here." Lyra glanced at Casimir, then back at Victor. "Yes, I'm here." Something shifted in Victor's expression. Not quite approval, but perhaps recognition. "You're stronger than you look, Dr. Vale. That's good. You'll need it." He stood, moving to a window overlooking manicured grounds. "Casimir tells me you're valuable. That keeping you alive serves the organization. I'm not convinced, but I'm willing to be proven wrong." "What does that mean?" Lyra asked. Victor turned. "It means you have 3 months to demonstrate your worth. During that time, you'll be under constant protection and observation. If you prove to be an asset, you live. If you're merely a liability—" "She's not a liability," Casimir interrupted. "She's—" "Casimir." Victor's voice went cold. "Let me finish." Lyra's heart hammered. 3 months. An evaluation period. Like she was applying for a job where failure meant death. Victor continued. "If you prove to be merely a liability, we'll discuss alternatives. Perhaps relocation. Perhaps memory modification through chemical means. Perhaps something more permanent. The threat was clear. "I understand," Lyra said quietly. "Good." Victor returned to his desk. "You may go. Casimir will explain the specifics of your arrangement." Outside, Lyra managed to keep walking until they reached the car. Then her legs gave out. Casimir caught her, holding her upright while she shook with delayed terror. "You did perfectly. Better than perfectly. He's going to kill me. He's going to give you a chance. That's more than most people get." Lyra pulled away, anger flooding through fear. "How can you be so calm about this? Your father just threatened to murder me, or, what was it, chemically modify my memory. Because I expected worse. Victor agreeing to an evaluation period means he sees potential value." Casimir guided her into the SUV. "It means we have time." "Time for what?" "To make you indispensable." The ride back to the city was silent except for Casimir's occasional phone calls. Lyra stared out the window, mind racing through impossible scenarios. 3 months, 90 days to prove her worth to a criminal organization. How exactly did a trauma surgeon become valuable to the mob? Back at Casimir's apartment, she found part of her answer waiting. Victor had sent files, detailed dossiers on every major player in Chicago's underworld, names, territories, weaknesses, medical histories. "What is this?" Lyra asked. Casimir stood behind her, hands on her shoulders. "Your new patient list. Victor wants you to become the organization's primary medical resource. Private trauma care for people who can't go to hospitals. Emergency surgery for injuries that would trigger police reports. A doctor who understands the family's needs." Lyra's stomach turned. "You want me to help criminals avoid accountability. I want you to stay alive. This is how you do it. By abandoning every ethical standard I have? By adapting to reality." Casimir turned her to face him. "Lyra, you're already compromised. The moment those men saw you, your old life ended. You can either accept that and survive, or you can cling to principles while Victor decides you're not worth the risk. That's not a choice. That's extortion. That's the world I live in, the world you're part of now." Lyra wanted to argue, wanted to find some moral high ground that didn't immediately result in her death. But looking at Casimir's expression, desperate beneath the cold efficiency, she realized he was trying to save her the only way he knew how, by making her complicit. "I need time," she whispered, "to think." "You have 3 months. Use it wisely." He kissed her forehead. "I'll give you space. But Lyra?" "What?" "Don't run, please. Because I will find you, and next time Victor won't be as generous." He left her alone with the files. Lyra sank onto the couch, staring at names and faces of people who'd probably killed dozens, who operated outside every law she believed in, who represented everything she'd spent her career opposing. And now they were her patients, her responsibility, her survival. She opened the first file. Mikhail Sokolov, age 32, multiple gunshot wounds, suspected hit on rival organization next week. Her hand shook as she read details that would let her save his life when the violence came. This was her choice now, complicit survival or principled death. Dr. Lyra Vale had spent her entire life saving people. Now she would save monsters, or become one herself. The file slipped from her fingers as the full weight of her new reality crashed down. And somewhere across the city, Casimir Volkov stood at his windows, phone pressed to his ear, while he rearranged Chicago's underworld to protect the one thing that mattered more than his empire, the woman who'd looked at him like he was human, even after learning he wasn't. The first week living in Casimir's downtown fortress felt like drowning in slow motion. Lyra woke each morning to coffee already brewed, black, 2 sugars, and security reports detailing every movement in a 5-block radius. Casimir left before dawn most days, returning after midnight smelling like gunpowder and expensive cologne. He never explained where he went. She stopped asking after the 3rd night, when his only response was a look that could freeze blood. The files Victor sent became her new reality. Names and faces of men who dealt in violence the way she dealt in sutures. Mikhail Sokolov, Anton Petrov, Dmitry Volkov, Casimir's younger brother apparently, though nobody had mentioned him before. Each dossier came with medical histories that read like war zone casualty reports. Bullet wounds, knife lacerations, burns from accelerants, the kind of injuries that should have killed normal people, but somehow these men kept walking around, conducting business, destroying lives. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Chicago Memorial, Dr. Chen asking when she'd return, colleagues wondering if she was okay, HR sending increasingly stern warnings about job abandonment. Lyra ignored them all, watching her career evaporate like steam while she memorized the blood types of criminals. On day 8, Casimir came home early. She was sitting at the dining table surrounded by medical files when he walked in, suit jacket already discarded, shoulder holster visible beneath his dress shirt. Fresh bruises colored his knuckles. Blood, not his, she'd learned to recognize the difference, spattered across his collar. "You're up late," he said, pouring himself vodka from a crystal decanter. "Couldn't sleep." "Join the club." He downed the drink in one swallow, poured another. "Victor wants to see you tomorrow. Says it's time to test your commitment." Lyra's stomach clenched. "Test how?" "One of our guys got shot during a territory dispute. Needs emergency surgery. Can't go to a hospital without triggering police investigation." Casimir's eyes met hers. "You're doing it here. Tomorrow night." "Here? I don't have an operating room. I don't have proper equipment. Or, you have whatever you need. I had medical supplies delivered this afternoon. Surgical lights, anesthesia, monitoring equipment. Everything on the list you made last week." She'd made that list as a hypothetical, a mental exercise to avoid thinking about the fact that she was living with a man who ordered executions before breakfast. "I made that list because you asked me to think about contingencies. Not because I agreed to. You don't have a choice." Casimir set down his glass with controlled force. "Victor's watching. This is your evaluation, Lyra. You either prove you're useful or you prove you're a liability, and we both know what happens to liabilities. I'm a trauma surgeon, not a mob doctor. You're whatever keeps you breathing. Figure out which matters more, your principles or your pulse." The brutality of it hit like a slap. Lyra stood, chair scraping against expensive hardwood. "You're an asshole. I'm realistic. There's a difference." "No. You're a coward who lets his father dictate terms instead of protecting the people he claims to care about." Casimir moved faster than she could track, closing the distance between them in 2 strides. His hand caught her jaw. Not violent, but firm enough to make his point. "You think I'm not protecting you? Every breath you take is because I've made it clear that touching you means war. Every morning you wake up alive is because I've threatened to burn this entire organization down if anyone so much as looks at you wrong. So don't lecture me about protection when you have no idea what I've already done to keep you safe." Lyra jerked away from his grip. "If you wanted to keep me safe, you'd have let me walk away that first night. We both know you didn't want to walk away. I didn't know what you were. You knew enough. You just didn't care because for once in your goddamn life, someone actually saw you, and that mattered more than safety." The accuracy stung worse than any physical blow. Lyra's hands shook with fury she couldn't direct anywhere productive. "I hate you." "No, you don't. You hate that I'm right." Casimir grabbed his jacket. "Surgery's at 8 tomorrow night. Patient will be here at 7:30 for pre-op. I suggest you prepare." He left without another word, door closing with controlled precision that was somehow worse than slamming. Lyra stood in the empty apartment, surrounded by files full of criminals, and a future she'd never chosen, and tried to remember what her life looked like before Casimir Volkov destroyed it. The memory wouldn't come. She worked through the night, converting Casimir's guest bedroom into something resembling a sterile surgical environment. The supplies he'd mentioned were stacked in boxes along one wall, hospital-grade equipment that should have required licenses and permits to obtain. She didn't ask how he'd gotten them. Didn't want to know which doctors or administrators he'd bribed or threatened. By dawn, she'd created a functional operating room. Not ideal. Not up to Chicago Memorial's standards, but adequate for emergency trauma surgery if the patient wasn't too far gone. Casimir returned around noon, showered, changed into clean clothes. He inspected her work without comment, then nodded once. "Good. Victor's sending Mikhail Sokolov. Took 3 rounds during a dispute with the Serbians last night. 1 in the shoulder, 2 in the abdomen. Stable enough to transport, but deteriorating. I'll need an assistant, someone with medical training." "I'll assist." Lyra laughed without humor. "You're not qualified. I've performed field surgery in 6 countries. I'm more qualified than you think." Casimir's expression didn't change. and I'm the only person Victor trusts in this room with you. Because he thinks I'll kill the patient intentionally? Because he doesn't know you well enough to predict your choices under pressure? I do. The implication hung between them. The Casimir understood her better than she understood herself. Lyra wanted to argue, but couldn't find the energy. Fine, but you follow my instructions exactly. No improvising, no second guessing. In that room, I'm in charge. Something flickered in Casimir's eyes, almost like respect. Understood. Mikhail Sokolov arrived at 7:45, carried between two men who looked like they'd walked off a military recruitment poster. He was conscious but fading, face gray beneath dark stubble, breathing shallow and rapid. Blood soaked through improvised bandages wrapped around his torso. On the table, Lyra ordered, already in surgical scrubs she'd found in the supplies. Carefully. They transferred him with surprising gentleness. Sokolov's eyes found hers, lucid despite the pain, assessing her the way men assessed threats. "You're the doctor," he said in accented English. "I'm the surgeon. Try not to die on my table." His mouth twitched. Might have been a smile. "I'll try." Lyra worked quickly, establishing IV access, hooking him to monitors, administering sedation. Casimir scrubbed in like he'd done it 1,000 times, movements efficient and practiced. When he caught her staring, he just raised an eyebrow. "Army medic training," he said, "before I joined the family business." Of course. Another piece of his history she'd never know the full story of. The surgery took 3 hours. Sokolov's injuries were worse than initially reported. One bullet had nicked his liver. Another had perforated his small intestine in 2 places. Lyra worked with focused intensity, hands moving through damaged tissue while Casimir provided suction and retraction without being asked. He anticipated her needs with eerie accuracy, passing instruments before she requested them. "How many times have you done this?" she asked during a brief pause while waiting for bleeding to slow. "Field surgery, dozens. Actual operating room? This is my second." "What was the first?" "Removing a bullet from my brother's spine. He lived, mostly." The casual way he said it made Lyra's hands falter. She caught herself, refocused on the surgical field. Questions could wait. Right now, she had a criminal's life in her hands and Viktor Volkov watching from somewhere to see if she'd save it. By hour 4, Sokolov was stable. Bleeding controlled, damaged organs repaired, abdomen closed with neat sutures that would leave minimal scarring. Lyra stepped back, stripping off bloody gloves while exhaustion hit like a freight train. "He'll live," she said. Casimir was already on the phone, speaking rapid Russian. When he hung up, his expression had shifted into something almost warm. "Victor's pleased, says you passed the first test." "First test? Meaning there are more. Meaning you're still alive. Take the win, Lyra." She wanted to feel relief. Instead, all she felt was hollow, like she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and the person she used to be was watching from somewhere far away, disappointed. Sokolov recovered in Casimir's apartment for 3 days. During that time, Lyra provided post-operative care while trying not to think about the fact that she was helping a man who'd probably killed dozens. He was polite, grateful even, thanked her in broken English and told Casimir she had good hands. When Victor's men came to collect him, Sokolov shook her hand with surprising gentleness. "You saved my life, doctor. I don't forget debts." Lyra didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know if she wanted gratitude from a killer. After he left, Casimir poured her wine without asking. Expensive red that probably cost more than her monthly salary used to be. "You did well," he said. "I helped a criminal avoid accountability." "You helped a man survive. The morality is negotiable." "Not to me." Casimir sat beside her on the couch, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixing with lingering antiseptic. "How long are you going to punish yourself for adapting to reality?" "I'm not adapting. I'm being coerced." "You're surviving. There's a difference." His hand found hers. "And you're good at it. Victor sees that. So does everyone else watching." "Who else is watching?" "Everyone. My father's captains. Rival organizations looking for weakness. Federal agents who'd love to turn you into an informant." Casimir's grip tightened. "You're visible now, Lyra. That means you're either protected or you're prey. There's no middle ground." She pulled her hand away, stood, moved to the windows. Chicago sprawled below, millions of lights representing lives that continued normally while hers had imploded. I want to go home. This is home now. My apartment is being watched by at least 3 different organizations. You go back there, you're dead within a week. Then I'll leave Chicago, disappear, change my name, and Victor will find you anyway. You think he'd let a liability just walk away? You know too much now. You've seen faces, heard names, performed surgery on his soldiers. Casimir stood, crossing to her. The only way out is through, and through means proving you're more valuable alive than dead. Lyra's reflection stared back at her from the window, exhausted, hollow-eyed, wearing clothes she hadn't chosen in an apartment she didn't own, trapped in a life she'd stumbled into during one moment of weakness. I should have run that first night, she whispered. But you didn't, and now we're here. Casimir's arms wrapped around her from behind. I'm sorry. For all of it. For lying. For dragging you into this world. For being selfish enough to keep you anyway. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know. But it's still true. They stood like that for a long time, watching the city breathe while the weight of impossible choices pressed down from all sides. Lyra's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Chicago Memorial terminated your employment, effective immediately. Dr. Chen. So that was it. Career over. Everything she'd worked for, medical school, residency, years of brutal shifts, gone, because she couldn't figure out how to escape a monster who looked at her like she mattered. She showed Casimir the message. He read it without expression. Victor can fix that. One call and you're reinstated with a promotion. I don't want his help. Then what do you want? Lyra turned in his arms, meeting eyes that had seen more violence than she could imagine. I want to go back in time and make different choices. Can't help with that one. Time travel's outside my skill set. His thumb brushed her cheek. But I can make the present bearable, if you let me. She shouldn't let him. Shouldn't accept comfort from the man who'd destroyed everything. But exhaustion and loneliness and the desperate human need to feel less alone won out over logic. When she kissed him, it tasted like surrender. They made it to the bedroom, shedding clothes and inhibitions in equal measure. Casimir was gentle this time, almost reverent in how he touched her, like she was fragile and he was terrified of breaking what little remained intact. Afterward, lying in tangled sheets while her heartbeat returned to normal, Lyra made a decision. If she couldn't escape this world, she'd learn to navigate it, study it, understand the systems that controlled life and death in Chicago's underworld. Not because she agreed with them, but because ignorance in this environment meant vulnerability, and she was done being vulnerable. I want to meet your brother, she said into the darkness. Casimir went still beside her. Why? Because he's in the files Victor sent. Because you mentioned him once and never again. Because if I'm going to survive in your world, I need to understand your family. Dimitri's not someone you want to know. I didn't want to know any of this. But here we are. Silence stretched between them. Then Casimir sighed, the sound carrying more weight than words. Fine. But Lyra, my brother makes me look gentle. Just remember that when you meet him. 3 days later, they drove to a facility north of the city that looked like an expensive rehabilitation center but felt like a prison. Guards at every entrance, cameras tracking every angle, the kind of security that suggested residents weren't there voluntarily. Inside, Casimir led her through sterile hallways to a private room where a man sat in a wheelchair, staring out a window at nothing. Dmitry Volkov looked like his brother. Same sharp features, same dark hair, but something fundamental was broken behind his eyes. He moved with mechanical precision, each gesture deliberate and slow, like his body remembered violence but couldn't quite execute it anymore. Dmitry, Casimir said quietly, I brought someone to meet you. Dimitri's head turned with unsettling smoothness, his gaze fixed on Lyra, assessment cold and thorough. The doctor, he said, voice flat, emotionless. Father mentioned you. I'm Lyra. I know who you are. I know everything. That's my purpose now, information processing since the shooting damaged my motor cortex. His smile was wrong, all teeth, no warmth. 3 bullets, spine, skull, and throat. Casimir removed 2. The third stayed lodged near my brainstem. You can see the scar if you'd like. I'm not modest about my failures. Lyra glanced at Casimir, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Dmitri was our father's enforcer, Casimir said, until a rival organization decided to send a message. They succeeded. The message was received. Victor killed 47 people in retaliation. I counted. Dmitri wheeled closer to Lyra, movements jerky but purposeful. You want to know what it's like living in this family, Doctor? It's watching everyone you love become weapons. It's understanding that survival requires moral flexibility and the capacity for extreme violence. It's knowing that the moment you show weakness, you become target practice. Dmitri, she asked to meet me, Casimir. I'm simply providing context. Those dead eyes found Lyra's again. You've performed one surgery, saved Mikhail Sokolov. Congratulations. But do you know what Mikhail does when he's not bleeding on operating tables? He runs our trafficking operations, moves people like cargo, children sometimes, and now you've ensured he'll continue that work for years to come. How does that feel, Doctor? Knowing your skills extend a monster's lifespan? The words hit like physical blows. Lyra's stomach turned, bile rising in her throat. That's enough, Casimir said, voice hard. Truth hurts, brother, but she should hear it. Should understand what saving our people actually means. Dmitri's smile widened. Welcome to the family, Lyra. Your complicity is noted and appreciated. Outside, back in the SUV, Lyra couldn't stop shaking. Casimir drove in silence for 10 minutes before pulling over at a deserted overlook above the highway. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought you. He's right, though, isn't he? Sokolov's a trafficker. I saved a trafficker. Lyra's voice cracked. Children, Casimir. He said children. Dmitri exaggerates. Sokolov handles logistics. He's not directly involved in... Don't. She cut him off, fury burning through horror. Don't minimize this. Don't explain it away. I need to know exactly what I did, what I'm complicit in. Casimir stared through the windshield at traffic flowing below. Sokolov coordinates shipments. Some of those shipments are illegal goods. Some are people who want to enter the country without documentation. And yes, sometimes those people include minors. But Mikhail doesn't personally. I don't care about personally. I care that I saved someone who facilitates child trafficking. Lyra's breath came in short gasps. I took an oath. First, do no harm. And you survived. That was the harm you prevented. That's not the same thing. In this world, it is. Casimir finally looked at her, expression raw. You think I don't know what we are? What I am? I've been drowning in this since I was 16, watching my father turn my brother into a weapon, learning that violence is just business with bloodier margins. And yeah, I've made peace with it because the alternative is becoming Dmitri, alive but broken, watching from the sidelines while everyone else continues the cycle. So you just accept it? Accept that you're part of something monstrous? I accept that this is reality. The same reality that put Marcus Williams on your operating table. The same reality that fills Chicago Memorial's trauma bays every weekend. You think the violence ends because you refuse to participate? It just finds different victims. Lyra wanted to argue, wanted to find some moral high ground that didn't immediately crumble under scrutiny. But the truth was, Chicago's violence had existed long before she met Casimir, and it would continue long after. The only difference now was she'd stopped pretending she wasn't part of it. Take me back, she said quietly. They drove in silence, the weight of complicity settling into Lyra's bones like lead. Back at the apartment, she found a package waiting. Plain brown box with no return address. Inside was a burner phone and a typed note. For emergencies. Speed dial 1 reaches federal witness protection. We can help. Agent Reeves. Lyra stared at it for a long time, feeling the weight of choice pressing against her chest. One call. That's all it would take. Federal protection, new identity, escape from this nightmare. But what would happen to Casimir? To the fragile arrangement keeping her alive? She hid the phone in her bathroom, behind bathroom supplies Casimir would never touch. Insurance. Just in case. That night, Viktor Volkov summoned them both to his estate. The meeting happened in his study again, same leather chairs, same predatory assessment, but this time Viktor's expression carried something adjacent to approval. Dr. Vale. You've proven competent. Mikhail speaks highly of your skills. Victor poured vodka for all three of them. This pleases me. A useful doctor is a valuable asset. Thank you, Lyra said, voice steady despite her racing pulse. However, Victor's tone shifted. Competence alone is insufficient. I need to know where your loyalties lie. I'm not sure I understand. You understand perfectly. You're an intelligent woman. Victor leaned forward. My son has made you liability. We've converted you into potential asset, but assets require investment, and I need assurance that investment won't betray us first opportunity. Casimir's hand found hers under the table, gripped tight. What kind of assurance? Lyra asked. Victor smiled, all teeth, no warmth. Exactly like Dmitri. Proof of commitment. Something that binds you to family in a way you cannot undo. Father, Casimir started. Silence. Victor didn't even glance at his son. Dr. Vale, we have situation developing. Serbian organization testing our boundaries, making moves on our territory. They've injured several of our people in past month. This cannot continue. I don't see what that has to do with me. We're planning response. Significant response. And you're going to provide medical support during operation. The air left Lyra's lungs. You want me to what? Our people will engage Serbians tomorrow night. There will be casualties. You will be on site, providing immediate trauma care to our soldiers, ensuring they survive to continue fighting. Victor's eyes were cold, calculating. This is your proof of loyalty. You save our people in combat situation. You demonstrate commitment that cannot be questioned. That's insane. I'm a surgeon, not a combat medic. You're whatever I need you to be. And tomorrow night, I need you in field, keeping my men alive while they eliminate threats to our organization. Victor stood, conversation over. Casimir will provide details. Be ready by 8. Outside, Lyra rounded on Casimir before they reached the car. You knew about this. I suspected. I didn't know he'd demand it this soon. I can't do this. I can't provide medical support during a gang war. That's your life now. Casimir grabbed her shoulders. Lyra, listen to me. Victor's testing you. If you refuse, you're dead. If you fail, you're dead. The only way through is to succeed. People are going to die tomorrow night because of your family's war, and you want me to help you kill them more efficiently. I want you to survive. Everything else is secondary. Lyra pulled away, mind reeling. I need to think. You have until tomorrow, 8 p.m. Underground parking garage on Wabash. Come prepared or don't come at all. His jaw clenched. But if you don't show, I can't protect you from what happens next. Back at the apartment, Lyra pulled out the burner phone. Her thumb hovered over speed dial 1. One call. Federal protection. Escape. But images flooded her mind. Casimir's face when he thought she wasn't watching. The way he touched her like she was the only real thing in his world. The desperate edge in his voice when he talked about keeping her safe. And beneath that, her own traitorous heart insisting that somewhere under the violence and lies, Casimir Volkov was worth saving. She put the phone away without dialing. Tomorrow night she'd cross another line. Provide medical care during active combat. Watch people die and save the ones wearing the right colors. Become complicit not just in organized crime, but in outright warfare. And maybe, if she survived, she'd figure out how to live with herself afterward. Or maybe she'd become someone who didn't need to. The thought terrified her more than Victor's threats ever could. When Casimir came home that night, Lyra was waiting with a list of medical supplies she'd need. He read it without comment, made calls in Russian, assured her everything would be ready. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I do. We both know that. I could get you out. Tonight. Fake your death, move you somewhere Victor would never find you. And then what? I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, running from shadows? Lyra met his eyes. At least this way I see the monsters coming. Something in Casimir's expression cracked. He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms, held her with desperate intensity. I'm so sorry, he whispered against her hair, for all of it. Sorry doesn't change anything. I know, but it's still true. They stood like that for a long time, holding on to each other while the clock counted down to violence. At 7:30 the next night, Lyra climbed into a tactical van filled with men carrying assault rifles. They looked at her with mixture of curiosity and respect, the doctor who'd saved Sokolov now joining them in field. Casimir sat beside her, dressed in black tactical gear, face already shifted into combat mode. He'd transformed from the man who made her coffee into something cold and lethal. "Rules are simple," he said, voice carrying to the entire team. "Dr. Vale's priority is our people. She points, you provide covering fire. She operates, you defend position. Anyone lets her get hit, I'll kill you myself." The men nodded, taking the threat seriously. The van drove through Chicago's industrial district, finally stopping at an abandoned warehouse complex along the river. Through the windshield, Lyra could see lights in the main building, Serbian operation, according to Casimir's briefing. "We hit hard and fast," Casimir explained, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Neutralize resistance. Secure package. Get out. Medical staging area is southwest corner. You stay there unless I specifically call you forward." "What package?" "Serbian commander. Victor wants him alive for questioning." Casimir's eyes met hers. "This is going to get ugly, Lyra. You need to be ready." She wasn't ready, would never be ready, but she nodded anyway because the alternative was watching Casimir walk into gunfire without her. The assault began at 20:05. Lyra crouched in her staging area, surrounded by medical supplies and two guards whose names she didn't know, listening to automatic weapons fire echo through the warehouse complex. Shouts in multiple languages, explosions that shook the ground, the organized chaos of professional violence. Then Casimir's voice crackled through the radio. "Need medical. Southwest corridor. Man down." Lyra grabbed her kit, following the guards through smoke and shadows toward the fighting. They found him slumped against shipping containers. Young guy, maybe 25, with most of his shoulder missing from what looked like shotgun blast. "Hold pressure here," Lyra ordered, already assessing damage. "You, get me IV access. Now." The guards complied without question while Lyra worked, hands moving through torn flesh with clinical precision. Around them, gunfire continued. Bullets sparked off metal. Someone screamed in Serbian, but Lyra focused on the immediate problem: arterial bleeding, pneumothorax, possible brachial plexus damage. She packed the wound, established IV access, administered pain medication and antibiotics. "He needs a hospital," she said. "Not an option." Casimir appeared beside her, blood spattered across his tactical vest. "Stabilize him here. We'll transport after." "He could bleed out, then work faster." Lyra wanted to argue, but more wounded were already arriving. Another gunshot, shrapnel injuries, one guy with knife wound across his abdomen that looked intentional and brutal. She worked through all of them, moving from patient to patient with mechanical efficiency while violence raged around her. This was triage in a war zone. No ethics committees, no hospital protocols, just immediate decisions about who lived and who died. Somewhere around patient 6, Lyra stopped thinking about morality, stopped questioning, just became hands in training moving through crisis after crisis. By the time Casimir called ceasefire, she'd treated 11 wounded. 9 would survive. 2 died despite everything she tried. The Serbian commander, bloody, beaten, zip-tied, was being loaded into a separate van when Victor arrived with a convoy. He surveyed the scene with cold satisfaction, nodded once at Casimir, then approached Lyra. "Dr. Vale, how many did we lose?" 2 KIA, 9 wounded, all stable for transport. Acceptable losses. Victor's expression remained neutral. "You performed well. This demonstrates commitment I required." Lyra should have felt relief. Instead, she just felt numb. "Can I go now?" "Yes. Casimir will take you home." Victor turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, doctor. You're pregnant." The world stopped. Everything, sound, motion, thought, compressed into those 2 words. Pregnant. "That's impossible," Lyra whispered. "Our surveillance identified symptoms 3 days ago. Morning nausea, fatigue, missed cycle. I had your blood tested during Sokolov's surgery. Congratulations." Victor's smile was predatory. "This changes your value considerably. Carry my grandchild successfully, and you'll have protection for life. Lose it, and we'll reconsider your arrangement." He walked away, leaving Lyra standing in warehouse carnage while her reality shattered into pieces too small to gather. Casimir appeared at her shoulder. "Lyra." She turned to him, seeing genuine terror beneath his controlled exterior. You knew. Victor told me this morning. I was trying to figure out how to... Get away from me! Lyra, I said get the fuck away from me. She stumbled toward the van, legs barely supporting her weight. Pregnant. With Casimir Volkov's child. In the middle of gang warfare. Under Victor's surveillance. This wasn't just crossing a line anymore. This was the point of no return. And Lyra Vale, former trauma surgeon, now complicit in organized crime and carrying a monster's baby, finally understood there was no escape from this world. Not now. Not ever. Behind her, Casimir stood in the shadows, watching the woman he loved disappear into darkness while his father's empire tightened around them both like a noose. Tomorrow they'd deal with consequences. Tonight, they'd both just try to survive until morning. The drive back to Casimir's apartment happened in silence so complete it felt like suffocation. Lyra pressed her forehead against the SUV's window, watching Chicago blur past while her mind tried to process the impossible. Pregnant. She was pregnant with a crime lord's child while covered in other people's blood, having just provided medical support during active gang warfare. The absurdity would have been funny if it wasn't destroying her from the inside out. Casimir sat beside her, phone pressed to his ear, conducting business in Russian like nothing had changed. But his free hand kept reaching toward her, then withdrawing before making contact. Like he knew touching her right now would make her shatter completely. He was right. Back at the apartment, Lyra went straight to the bathroom and vomited until nothing remained but bile and horror. She could hear Casimir on the other side of the door, waiting, not speaking, just present in that awful way he'd perfected, observing, calculating, always 3 steps ahead. When she finally emerged, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "There's nothing to talk about." "Lyra, you knew." Her voice came out flat. "Dead. Victor told you this morning, and you let me walk into that warehouse anyway. Let me crouch in the dark treating wounded soldiers while pregnant. Do you understand how insane that is?" Casimir's jaw clenched. "I was trying to figure out how to tell you without what? Making me realize how completely fucked this situation is? Too late." Lyra grabbed her jacket, needing to move, needing air. "I need to leave. I need to think." "You can't leave. Watch me." She made it 3 steps toward the door before Casimir moved, blocking her path with his body. Not aggressive, just immovable. "It's not safe. Victor has eyes everywhere. The Serbians know what you look like now, and you just found out you're carrying the heir to the Volkov syndicate. Every enemy we have will be looking for leverage. Then I'll call Agent Reeves. Federal protection, new identity, I'll disappear." Something dangerous flickered in Casimir's expression. "How do you know about Agent Reeves?" Shit. Lyra's silence was answer enough. Casimir crossed to the bathroom, emerged 30 seconds later holding the burner phone she'd hidden. His face had gone completely blank, the expression he wore before violence. "How long have you had this?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I don't remember." "And you didn't mention it because?" "Because it's insurance. Because some part of me knew I'd eventually need an exit strategy. From me. Not a question. Just flat statement of fact. From all of this," Lyra gestured at the apartment, the city beyond, the entire nightmare her life had become. "I didn't ask for any of this, Casimir. I didn't ask to fall for a criminal. I didn't ask to perform surgery on traffickers. I didn't ask to provide combat medical support. And I sure as hell didn't ask to get pregnant in the middle of a gang war." Casimir was quiet for a long moment, turning the phone over in his hands. Then he walked to the window and threw it. The device shattered against pavement 12 stories below. "There's your exit strategy," he said, voice cold. "Now we deal with reality. You just destroyed federal evidence. I destroyed your fantasy that anyone can protect you better than I can." He turned to face her, and Lyra barely recognized the man looking back. This wasn't the charming neighbor, or even the dangerous crime lord. This was something rawer, more desperate. "You want to know why I didn't tell you about the pregnancy this morning? Because I was terrified. For the first time in my adult life, I was genuinely fucking terrified. Not of enemies, not of prison, but of losing you. And I didn't know how to say that without sounding like every other controlling asshole who's ever used love as justification for violence. So instead you said nothing and let me risk both our lives in a war zone. I made sure you were protected. I put my best men on you. I stayed close enough to intervene if anything went wrong. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Lyra? Because from where I'm standing, the point is you're alive, you're safe, and you're carrying my child. Everything else is just noise. The casual way he dismissed her agency made fury burn through exhaustion. The point is you don't get to make these decisions alone. The point is, this is my body, my life, my choice about what happens next. And what choice is that? Because if you're thinking about termination, Victor will never allow it. That child is leverage, is dynasty, is the only thing keeping you valuable enough to protect. Lyra's hands went instinctively to her abdomen, still flat, no visible evidence of the catastrophe growing inside. What if I want it anyway? Casimir's expression shifted, hope and terror in equal measure. Do you? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore except that I'm drowning and you keep pushing me deeper while calling it rescue. She pushed past him, needing space, needing to breathe. The apartment felt like a cage, expensive and comfortable, but still a cage. She could feel Casimir's eyes tracking her movement, cataloging her distress with that analytical precision he applied to everything. I'll talk to Victor, he said finally. Make it clear that the pregnancy doesn't change your autonomy, that you're not just an incubator. He won't care. He'll care if I make him care. How? By threatening your own father? That worked so well with Dmitri. Lyra turned to face him. Your brother's in a wheelchair because he got caught in your family's violence, and now you want to bring a child into this world? You think that's fair? Nothing about this is fair, but it's happening anyway. Is it? Lyra heard herself say words she hadn't consciously decided to speak. Because there are options, ways to end this before. Casimir crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, hands framing her face with surprising gentleness. Don't, please. I know I have no right to ask. I know this is your choice, but please don't make it tonight when you're exhausted and traumatized and covered in other people's blood. When should I make it? When I'm thinking clearly enough to realize how completely this ruins everything? When you've had time to consider all the variables, including the fact that I love you. The words hit like a physical blow. Lyra's breath caught. Don't. It's true. I've been in love with you since the first month you moved in. Watching you leave for shifts, seeing you come back destroyed and still showing up the next day. You were the realest thing in my entire manufactured life, and I couldn't let you go. That's obsession, not love. Maybe. Probably. But it's still what I feel. His thumbs traced her cheekbones. And that child you're carrying is half you, which means it's the only good thing I've ever helped create. So yeah, I'm begging you not to make decisions tonight. Give it a week. Let me show you that we can build something different, something better. Lyra wanted to argue, wanted to push him away. But exhaustion had eroded every defense she'd built. And the truth was, some part of her, some stupid, self-destructive part, loved him too. 1 week, she whispered. But if I decide I can't do this, you have to let me go. No Victor, no threats, no forcing me to stay. Casimir hesitated, and in that hesitation Lyra saw the truth. He would never let her go. Could never let her go. Because she'd become the thing he needed more than power or money or even survival. 1 week, he agreed anyway. A lie they both recognized. The next morning, Lyra woke to find Casimir already gone and a note on the nightstand. Doctor appointment at 10. Car waiting downstairs. K. She wanted to refuse. To assert some kind of control over her own medical care. But curiosity won out over rebellion. At 9:45, she climbed into the SUV where her security team waited with professional neutrality. The clinic was in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. Upscale, quiet, the kind of place where discretion cost extra. Inside, a receptionist who looked like she'd been briefed on exactly who Lyra was led her to a private examination room. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to her former attending, was maybe 50, with kind eyes and the calm efficiency of someone who'd seen everything. She didn't ask questions about Lyra's circumstances, just performed the examination with professional detachment. You're about 6 weeks along, Dr. Chen said, reviewing the ultrasound. Everything looks normal. Healthy heartbeat. No complications so far. Lyra stared at the screen showing a tiny blob that would eventually become a person. Her person. Casimir's person. The next generation of Volkov violence, or maybe impossible thought. Something different. What are my options? She asked quietly. Dr. Chen's expression didn't change. Medically, you have all options available. Continuation with prenatal care. Termination. I can provide referrals for either path. And legally? That's not my area of expertise, but I'm aware of your situation, and I'd advise you to consider all variables before making decisions. Which was professional code for Viktor Volkov owns this clinic, and your choices aren't as free as they should be. How long do I have to decide? Most patients make decisions within the first 12 weeks, but ultimately, it's your timeline. Except it wasn't. Not really. Viktor had made that clear. Back at the apartment, Lyra found Casimir waiting with food from her favorite Thai place, the one near Chicago Memorial she used to visit after overnight shifts. The gesture was sweet and manipulative in equal measure. How was the appointment? He asked, setting out containers. Fine. Healthy? 6 weeks. And I need more time to think. Casimir nodded, not pushing. They ate in tense silence while Lyra tried to reconcile the man who brought her comfort food with the man who'd watched her provide medical care during gang warfare without warning her she was pregnant. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. We need to talk. Dmitri has information you need. V. Victor. Summoning her like she was staff. What does he want? Casimir asked, reading over her shoulder. Says Dmitri has information I need. It's a trap. Some kind of test. Everything's a test with your family. Lyra grabbed her jacket. But I'm going anyway, because sitting here pretending this is normal is making me insane. Then I'm coming with you. No. Victor summoned me, not us, and I'm tired of you running interference. Casimir's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Just made a phone call in Russian, then nodded. Your security team will follow. If anything feels wrong, you leave immediately. I've survived this long. I can handle one conversation. The drive north to Dmitri's facility felt longer than before. Lyra watched suburbs give way to countryside while her mind raced through possibilities. What information could Dmitri have that she needed? What game was Victor playing now? Inside, she found Dmitri exactly where she'd left him, wheelchair by the window, staring at nothing. But when she entered, his dead eyes tracked her movement with unsettling focus. Dr. Vale, right on time. Father appreciates punctuality. Dmitri gestured to a chair. Sit. This conversation requires context. Victor said you have information. I do. But first, a question. What do you know about Casimir's mother? Lyra frowned. Nothing. He's never mentioned her. Of course not. Because Irina Volkova's existence complicates the narrative. Dmitri wheeled closer. Movements jerky but purposeful. She was a doctor, like you, emergency medicine, met Victor during a gang dispute that resulted in multiple casualties. He was captivated. She was idealistic. They married within 6 months. Lyra's stomach clenched. Why are you telling me this? Because you're repeating history. And history in this family has patterns. Dmitri's smile was all wrong. Irina got pregnant with Casimir. Thought she could change Victor, humanize him, make the organization less violent. She failed, obviously. Victor doesn't change, he consumes, and when Irina tried to leave, when she realized the monster she'd married, Victor had her committed to psychiatric facility for a postpartum psychosis. The room tilted. That's not true? Oh, it's very true. I've seen the records. Irina spent 3 years in facility while Victor raised Casimir to be his heir. By the time she was released, her son didn't recognize her, didn't want to, had been taught that she abandoned him, that she was weak. Where is she now? Dead. Suicide, officially. Though the timing, right after she tried to reconnect with Casimir, suggests Victor's hand. He doesn't tolerate loose ends. Dmitri leaned forward. You're the loose end now, Doctor. Pregnant with heir Victor needs. Attached to son he's molded since birth. And if you think Casimir will protect you against our father's plans, you're deluding yourself. Love doesn't trump dynasty. It never has. Lyra's hands shook. Casimir wouldn't what? Choose you over his father? He already did once. Look where it got me. Dmitri gestured to his wheelchair. I questioned Victor's orders, suggested alternative approach. And suddenly I was target practice for Serbian hit squad. Coincidence? Father doesn't believe in coincidence. You're saying Victor arranged your shooting? I'm saying Victor eliminates obstacles. And I was becoming obstacle, just like Irina, just like anyone who threatens his control over Casimir. Those dead eyes held hers. You want to know the real information Father sent you here to learn? It's this. You're not Casimir's redemption. You're his test. Victor's watching to see if his son will choose love over loyalty. And when Casimir inevitably chooses loyalty, because that's what Victor raised him to do, you'll disappear, just like Irina, just like everyone who's ever mattered to us. The words landed like bullets. Lyra stood, needing to move, needing air. Why tell me this? Because I'm tired of watching people walk into slaughter thinking they're different, thinking their love matters more than it does. Dimitri's expression held something almost like pity. You seem intelligent, Doctor. So be intelligent. Take the federal protection. Disappear. Terminate the pregnancy and run as far as you can, because staying means becoming another ghost in this family's history. Lyra's phone buzzed. Text from Casimir. Everything okay? No. Nothing was okay. Everything was catastrophically, irreversibly broken. Thank you for the warning, she said quietly. It's not a warning. It's just truth. What you do with it is your choice, though I suspect you've already made it. Outside, the security team was waiting. Lyra climbed into the SUV, mind reeling through Dimitri's revelations. Casimir's mother. Committed. Controlled. Eventually eliminated. And now Lyra was walking the same path, pregnant with the next heir, tied to a man who'd been raised to value dynasty over everything. Back at the apartment, she found Casimir pacing, phone pressed to his ear. He hung up when he saw her. What did Dimitri say? The truth, apparently, about your mother. Casimir went very still. What about her? That she was a doctor, that she got pregnant with you, that Victor had her committed when she tried to leave, that she died under suspicious circumstances. Lyra watched his face carefully. Is it true? Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of buried history. Yes, Casimir said finally. It's true. And you never thought to mention that I'm repeating her exact pattern? It's not the same. It's identical. Doctor falls for criminal, gets pregnant, realizes the monster she's tied to, tries to leave, gets destroyed. Lyra's voice rose. Your father eliminated your mother. What makes you think he won't eliminate me? Because I won't let him. Because I'm not the child Irina left behind anymore. I'm the heir Victor needs. And I have leverage he can't ignore. What leverage? Casimir moved to his desk, pulled out a thick folder. Everything. Every crime Victor's committed in the past 30 years. Every murder. Every deal. Every compromised official. Digital copies stored in 5 different locations with instructions to release if anything happens to me. Or you. Or our child. Lyra stared at the folder. You're blackmailing your own father? I'm ensuring our survival. Victor respects power. This is power. This is suicide. You think he'll just accept being threatened? He doesn't have a choice. I made sure of that. Casimir's expression was cold, certain. Victor taught me everything he knows about building empires. He shouldn't be surprised when I use those lessons against him. And what happens when he calls your bluff? It's not a bluff. Everything's a bluff eventually. Your father's been doing this for 40 years. You really think you can outmaneuver him? Before Casimir could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, expression darkening. It's Victor. Don't answer it. I have to. He accepted the call, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up. When he looked at Lyra, something in his eyes made her blood freeze. What? The Serbians just released footage from last night's raid. You're visible in multiple frames providing medical care. They've identified you, posted your name, your address, your medical license number, and they're offering $500,000 to anyone who delivers you alive. The room spun. What? You're a target now. Open bounty. Every criminal in Chicago knows your face and knows you're valuable. Casimir was already moving, grabbing supplies, making calls. We need to move. Now. This location's compromised. Move where? Victor's estate. It's the only place with enough security to... No. Lyra backed away. I'm not going to your father's compound. Not after what Dmitri told me. Lyra, this isn't negotiable. There's a $500,000 bounty on your head. Every street criminal, every desperate addict, every low-level enforcer is hunting you right now. Victor's estate is the only safe place. Safe for who? Me or the heir I'm carrying? Both, I promise. Your promises don't mean anything anymore. Lyra grabbed her phone, tried to think through panic. Agent Reeves. She needed to contact Agent Reeves, except Casimir had destroyed the burner phone. I need to call. Who? The FBI? You think they'll protect you better than I can? You're wanted by Serbian Mafia, Lyra. Federal witness protection can't hide you from that kind of reach. Then what's the solution? Live in your father's prison forever? Raise this child surrounded by guards and violence and... The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across expensive hardwood as 3 figures crashed through, automatic weapons raised. Lyra barely had time to scream before Casimir tackled her to the ground, body covering hers while gunfire erupted overhead. The security team responded instantly, returning fire from positions throughout the apartment. The assault was over in 45 seconds. All 3 attackers dead. Apartment destroyed, Lyra's ears ringing from sustained gunfire at close range. Casimir pulled her upright, checking for injuries with frantic efficiency. Are you hurt? The baby... I'm fine. We're fine. Lyra's hands shook violently. What the fuck just happened? Bounty hunters. First wave. There'll be more. Casimir was already on his phone, barking orders in Russian. We're leaving. Now. He practically carried her to the private elevator, security team forming defensive perimeter while sirens wailed in the distance. The parking garage had 3 SUVs waiting, engines running, doors open. Get in, Casimir ordered, pushing her toward the middle vehicle. Lyra climbed inside, mind still processing the fact that people had just tried to kidnap her through a 12th-story window. The convoy pulled out with military precision, racing through Chicago's streets while Casimir made continuous phone calls. They were 10 blocks from Victor's estate when the ambush happened. A semi-truck jackknifed across the road, blocking their path. The SUVs screeched to a halt, and gunfire erupted from surrounding buildings. Coordinated, professional. Not desperate bounty hunters, but trained operators. The security team returned fire while Casimir grabbed Lyra, dragging her from the vehicle toward cover. Bullets punched through metal and glass. Someone screamed. The driver's head exploded in red mist. Stay down, Casimir growled, weapon in hand, returning fire with terrifying accuracy. But there were too many attackers, too many angles. The security team was being systematically eliminated while more shooters moved into position. Then Victor arrived. 4 armored vehicles crashed through the ambush perimeter, disgorging soldiers who moved with military precision. The firefight intensified, automatic weapons, grenades, the organized chaos of professionals killing each other efficiently. Victor himself emerged from the lead vehicle, flanked by bodyguards, surveying the carnage with cold satisfaction. Get her inside, he ordered, gesturing to Lyra. Casimir hesitated, just a fraction of a second, before helping Lyra toward his father's vehicle. She climbed into leather seats still warm from Victor's presence while battle raged around them. The convoy reorganized, pulling away from the ambush while Victor's soldiers covered their retreat. Lyra watched through bulletproof glass as bodies littered the street, wondering how many would die today because she'd made the mistake of sleeping with her neighbor 7 months ago. At Victor's estate, medical staff was waiting, real doctors this time, not just Lyra improvising. They examined her thoroughly, confirmed the pregnancy was unaffected, administered sedatives she tried to refuse but eventually accepted when her hands wouldn't stop shaking. When she woke, it was dark outside and Casimir sat beside her bed, looking like he'd aged a decade. The baby's fine, he said quietly. You're fine. 18 attackers dead, 7 of our people killed, and the Serbians just doubled the bounty to 1 million. Lyra stared at the ceiling, too exhausted to cry. I want this to stop. It will, as soon as we eliminate the Serbian leadership. You mean murder them? I mean remove the threat, whatever that requires. And then what? Another organization puts a bounty on me? Another gang war erupts? This never ends, Casimir. You have to see that. It ends when they understand touching you means annihilation, when the cost is so catastrophic that nobody dares try. His hand found hers. I'm going to war, Lyra. Complete war. Against the Serbians. Against anyone who threatens you. And it's going to be brutal and ugly and everything you hate. But it's the only way to ensure our child grows up safe. Our child is going to grow up learning that violence solves everything, just like you did. Our child is going to grow up alive. That's what matters. Lyra pulled her hand away. I can't do this. I can't raise a baby in this world. I can't watch you become your father while pretending it's protection. Then what's the alternative? Before she could answer, the door opened. Victor entered, flanked by guards, carrying himself with the authority of a man who owned everything in sight. Dr. Vale, I'm glad you're recovering. He dismissed the guards with a gesture, closed the door. We need to discuss your situation. My situation is that your enemies want to kidnap me. Your situation is that you've become liability that endangers this organization, the bounty, the attacks, the attention from law enforcement. Victor sat in a chair across from her bed. This cannot continue. Then let me go. Federal protection, new identity. I disappear and your problems disappear. Unacceptable. You're carrying my grandchild, my heir. That child remains with family. Lyra's blood went cold. You can't force me to... I can do whatever necessary to protect family interests, which brings us to your choice. Victor leaned forward. Option 1. You remain here under guard until child is born. Afterward, we arrange custody transfer and you receive generous settlement plus new identity far from Chicago. You want to take my baby. I want to ensure dynasty continues. Your maternal involvement is negotiable. That's kidnapping. That's pragmatism. Option 2. You marry Casimir, publicly, binding yourself to family in a way that makes you protected rather than hunted. The Serbians won't touch wife of Volkov heir. Too much risk of retaliation. Lyra looked at Casimir, who'd gone very still. You knew about this. I suspected father would propose options. I didn't know specifics. Option 2 includes conditions, Victor continued. You integrate completely into organization, provide medical services as needed, raise child within family structure, and you never attempt to leave. Marriage is permanent. That's not marriage. That's captivity with paperwork. That's survival. Choose. Victor stood. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, I make decision for you. He left, guards closing the door behind him. Lyra and Casimir sat in silence, while the weight of impossible choices crushed down. I can get you out, Casimir said finally. Tonight. I have resources Victor doesn't know about. We can disappear together, both of us. And spend our lives running, raise this child looking over our shoulder constantly? Better than the alternatives. Is it? Lyra turned to face him. Your father just gave me 2 choices. Lose my baby or lose my freedom. And you're offering a third option that loses both eventually. Because Victor will find us. You know he will. He found your mother. He'll find me. Irina didn't have me protecting her. She had your father protecting her once too. Look how that ended. Casimir flinched like she'd struck him. I'm not Victor. Aren't you? You've killed people, built criminal empire, made decisions about my life without consulting me. You're exactly what he raised you to be. That's not fair. None of this is fair, that's the point. Lyra stood, needing to move despite exhaustion. I've been trying to figure out how I got here. How a trauma surgeon ends up pregnant and trapped and targeted by international criminals. And the truth is I made one mistake, one night of weakness, and now I'm paying for it with my entire future. Loving me was a mistake? Yes, because you're not capable of putting me first. Not really. When Victor gave you those options, you didn't immediately reject both. You didn't threaten him. You just sat there calculating which choice served you best. That's not true. It is true, and we both know it. You love me within the boundaries your father allows. And the second those boundaries conflict with family loyalty, you'll choose family, just like Dmitri said. Casimir's expression went cold. Dmitri's trying to manipulate you. Dmitri's trying to warn me. There's a difference. And what? You believe him over me? I believe the pattern. Doctor meets criminal, gets pregnant, gets controlled, gets eliminated when convenient. Lyra moved to the window, staring out at Victor's estate, beautiful and lethal in equal measure. Your mother trusted your father to protect her. I'm not making the same mistake. So what's your choice? Give up the baby, marry me and pretend it's consent? Run and guarantee Victor hunts us both? I don't know. Lyra's voice cracked. I don't know anything anymore except that every option ends with me losing. Behind her, Casimir was quiet for a long time. Then she heard him stand, move toward the door. I'm going to talk to Victor, make him understand that forcing this won't work. He won't listen. He will. Because I'll make the same threat I made before. Release everything. Destroy the organization. Burn it all down if he touches you. And you think that solves anything? You think threatening your father makes me safer? It's all I have left. Casimir's hand touched her shoulder briefly. I know you don't believe me, but I do love you, and I will protect you, even if that means protecting you from my own family. He left before she could respond. Lyra stood at the window, watching guards patrol the grounds, wondering if Casimir understood that protection and imprisonment looked identical from the inside. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. I can help, but you have to trust me. Reply with any word if interested. Agent Reeves. How did Reeves get this number? How did anyone get through Victor's security to contact her? Lyra's thumb hovered over the keyboard. One word. That's all it would take to activate federal protection, to escape this nightmare. But Reeves didn't know about the bounty. Didn't understand Serbian reach. Couldn't guarantee safety better than Victor's fortress. She deleted the message without responding. 3 hours later, Casimir returned looking like he'd been through a war, blood on his knuckles, expression dark with barely restrained violence. What happened? Lyra asked. Victor and I had a disagreement about boundaries, about what he's allowed to demand. Casimir's voice was flat, empty. He's agreed to modify the options. Modified how? Option 1 remains unchanged. Option 2 now includes guarantee that you maintain autonomy within marriage, no forced medical services, no custody threats, your wife and mother, not employee. And you believe him? I have it in writing, signed, legally binding. Your father's word doesn't mean anything. It does when backed by credible threat. Casimir showed her his phone, documents, bank transfers, encrypted files. I've established dead man's switch. If anything happens to me, all Victor's secrets release automatically. He touches you, he loses everything. That's the new arrangement. Lyra stared at the evidence of Casimir's betrayal of his own father, the lengths he'd go to protect her, the fact that he'd built insurance policy out of family destruction. You're at war with Victor now. I've always been at war with him. I just stopped pretending otherwise. And when he finds a way around your safeguards, when he outmaneuvers you like he's outmaneuvered everyone else, he won't. Because I learned from the best. Casimir moved closer, hands framing her face with desperate gentleness. Marry me, Lyra. Not because Victor demands it, but because together we're stronger than his control. Because our child deserves parents who chose each other instead of parents forced together by circumstance. You're asking me to marry you in your father's compound while under guard with a bounty on my head. You understand how insane that sounds. I understand it's not ideal. But it's real, and it's the best offer you're going to get in this situation. The brutal honesty of it hurt worse than lies would have. Lyra pulled away, needing space to think. But there was no space in Victor's estate, no privacy, no freedom, just walls and guards and choices that all led to the same captive future. I need time, she said. You have 9 hours left of Victor's deadline. Then I'll use all 9 hours. Casimir nodded, starting toward the door. Then he paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. For all of it. For the lies. For the danger. For destroying your life while calling it love. You deserve better than me. Yes, Lyra said quietly. I did. He left her alone with impossible decisions. Lyra paced the room, mind racing through scenarios. Marriage to Casimir meant accepting this life permanently. Giving up the baby meant losing part of herself. Running meant guaranteed death when Victor found her. Every choice was surrender. She was still pacing when the door opened 2 hours later. Not Casimir this time. Victor himself, alone for the first time since she'd entered his home. Dr. Vale, I thought we should speak privately. Lyra's muscles tensed. About? About reality. About what happens next. Victor sat, gestured for her to do the same. Casimir thinks he's protected you with his dead man's switch, his insurance policies, his threats. But we both know protection is illusion. Everyone has vulnerabilities. Is that a threat? It's observation. Casimir loves you. That makes him weak, predictable, easy to manipulate. Victor's expression was almost kind. Almost. You love him too, I think. Despite everything. Despite knowing what he is. That makes you equally vulnerable. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand your position clearly. You're not making choice between captivity and freedom. You're choosing between different forms of captivity. Marriage to my son means you're protected by family structure but controlled by family obligations. Giving up child means you're free to leave but forever haunted by what you abandoned. And running means you're hunted until caught or killed. Those are my only options? In this world? Yes. Victor leaned forward. But here's what I can offer that Casimir can't. Truth. Complete transparency about what your future looks like under each scenario. Why would you do that? Because lies are Casimir's method. I prefer honesty. It's more efficient. Victor pulled out a tablet, showed her documents. Option 1. You leave without child. I provide $5 million, new identity, relocation anywhere in world outside Serbian reach. Child is raised by Casimir, with occasional supervised contact if you wish. You live comfortably, but childless. You're buying my baby. I'm purchasing your freedom. There's difference. He swiped to another document. Option 2. You marry Casimir. Live here under protection. Raise child together. But understand, this life is permanent. You'll witness violence, participate in organization as needed, watch our family destroy others in name of survival, and you'll do all this knowing you chose it. That's not a choice. That's coercion. That's reality. Choice exists in how you frame it mentally. Some women would see option 2 as romantic. Dangerous man reformed by love. Family built from chaos. You're intelligent enough to see through romance to machinery underneath. That's why I'm speaking plainly. Lyra's hands trembled. What do you actually want from me, Victor? I want you to choose option 2. Marry my son. Integrate into family. Produce heirs who strengthen dynasty. His expression didn't change. But I want you to choose it consciously, not because you're forced, because you understand its optimal outcome for everyone involved. Optimal for you, you mean. For all of us. You get protection, resources, father for your child. Casimir gets family he desperately wants. I get continuity of organization. The Serbians get message that Vulov family is unified and untouchable. Victor stood. Everyone wins except enemies. That's how good strategy works. And if I refuse? If I choose option 1? Then I respect your decision and ensure smooth transition. Casimir will be heartbroken, but he'll survive. He always does. Victor moved toward the door, paused. 7 hours remaining, Doctor. Use them wisely. He left her alone with his brutal honesty hanging in the air like smoke. Lyra collapsed onto the bed, mind reeling. Victor's approach was somehow more terrifying than Casimir's desperate promises, because it made sense, cold, logical sense that bypassed emotion entirely. She pulled out her phone, typed message to the last person she expected to contact. I need advice, completely honest advice. Can we talk? Lyra sent it to Dimitri's number, which she'd saved after their last conversation. Response came 3 minutes later. Visiting hours are over. But I'll tell you what you need to hear anyway. You're looking for third option that doesn't exist. There are only 2 paths, submit or flee. Submission keeps you alive but destroys who you are. Flight preserves identity but guarantees eventual death. Choose which matters more, survival or self. D. Lyra read it 3 times, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones. Submit or flee. Survival or self. Those were her only real options, stripped of Victor's political framing and Casimir's romantic delusions. She thought about Marcus Williams, the 13-year-old who'd bled out on her operating table months ago. Thought about all the patients she'd lost over the years. All the lives she couldn't save because violence moved faster than medicine. And she thought about the tiny heartbeat she'd seen on the ultrasound. 6 weeks of potential. 6 weeks of cells dividing toward consciousness. Her child. Casimir's child. The next generation of Volkov destruction, or maybe, impossible hope, something different. Her phone buzzed again. Casimir this time. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. Even if that means letting you go. I love you too much to keep you trapped. K. The lie was kind but obvious. Casimir would never let her go, would hunt her to the ends of the earth while calling it protection. But maybe that was its own kind of love. Destructive and possessive and completely real. Lyra stood, moved to the window one final time. Chicago sprawled in the distance, city of violence and beauty and impossible choices. Somewhere out there, doctors were saving lives in emergency rooms. Somewhere, people were making normal decisions about normal futures. She wasn't one of those people anymore. Hadn't been since the night rain fell like bullets, and Casimir Volkov's hand closed around her wrist. When the door opened again, she didn't turn around, just spoke into the darkness. I'll marry him, under one condition. What condition? Casimir's voice, rough with hope and terror. You teach me everything. How your world works, how to survive in it, how to protect myself and this child when you're not around. She finally faced him. I'm not going to be your mother. Helpless and controlled and eventually eliminated. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it with my eyes open and my hands ready. Casimir crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. Deal. I'll teach you everything I know. And if Victor tries to control me anyway, then we burn his empire down together. Lyra rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat while her own heart fractured into pieces too small to count. She'd made her choice. Submit, survive, become the thing she'd always feared, but on her own terms, with her own weapons, and with the ruthless determination of a woman who'd learned that sometimes salvation looked exactly like surrender. Behind them, Victor watched through security monitors, allowing himself a rare smile. Everything according to plan. The girl thought she had chosen autonomy, didn't understand she'd actually chosen exactly what he'd wanted all along. Casimir thought he'd protected her with threats and insurance, didn't understand he'd simply given his father new leverage to exploit. And the baby, the precious heir, would grow up learning the same lessons they all had. That love was weakness, that family was weapon, that survival required sacrificing everything you thought you were for the privilege of staying alive. Victor closed the monitors satisfied. The Volkov dynasty would continue. And Dr. Lyra Vale, brilliant surgeon, reluctant criminal, broken woman pretending to be whole, would learn what his wife Irina had learned before her, that there was no escape from this family, only deeper levels of captivity dressed up as choice. Tomorrow they'd plan the wedding. Tonight, Victor would ensure that every possible escape route closed permanently, because he loved his son. And love, in the Volkov family, meant destroying anything that threatened control, even if it meant destroying the thing your son loved most. Especially then. The wedding preparations began at dawn. Lyra woke to find Victor's staff already measuring her for a dress she hadn't chosen, scheduling a ceremony she hadn't planned, sending invitations to people she'd never met. The machine of the Volkov organization had activated, and she was just another component being fitted into place. Casimir appeared around 8, looking like he hadn't slept. We need to talk, privately. They walked the estate grounds under the watchful eyes of guards positioned every 30 feet. Privacy was illusion here, but at least the pretense existed. Victor's moving faster than expected, Casimir said, voice low. Wedding set for 3 days from now. Small ceremony. Family only. He says it's for security, but I think he's worried you'll change your mind. Will he let me change my mind? No. But I need you to know you still can. I meant what I said last night. I'll get you out if that's what you want. Lyra stopped walking, studying his face for lies, found only exhaustion and desperate sincerity. You'd really let me go? I'd hate it. I'd probably destroy half of Chicago in the aftermath. But yeah, I'd let you go. His hand found hers. Because keeping you prisoner isn't the same as keeping you. Your father won't see it that way. My father sees women as assets to manage. He always has. It's why my mother died hating him. Casimir's grip tightened. I'm not making that mistake. You want out? We leave tonight. Both of us. The dead man's switch activates. Victor's empire implodes, and we disappear. And the baby grows up running, always looking over our shoulder, never safe. Maybe. Or maybe we find somewhere far enough away that the Volkov name doesn't reach. Lyra wanted to believe that was possible, but she'd seen the files, knew the organization's reach extended across continents. There was nowhere far enough. I made my choice, she said quietly. I'm staying, but on my terms. What terms? You start teaching me today. How to shoot, how to fight, how to survive in your world without being helpless. Her eyes met his. I'm not going to be the fragile thing everyone protects. I'm going to be dangerous enough that people think twice before touching me. Something shifted in Casimir's expression, surprise mixed with approval. You're sure? I've never been less sure of anything, but I'm doing it anyway. He kissed her then, urgent and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her before everything changed. When they broke apart, his eyes held dark promise. First lesson starts in an hour. Bring comfortable clothes and your anger. You'll need both. The estate had a private shooting range in the basement, soundproofed, climate-controlled, stocked with enough weapons to outfit a small army. Casimir handed Lyra a Glock 19, showed her the basic mechanics with patient efficiency. Safety off, grip firm, sight alignment, squeeze, don't pull. His body moved behind hers, guiding her stance. Violence is about commitment. Half measures get you killed. Lyra fired. The recoil surprised her, shot going wide. Again. She fired, closer this time. Again. 6 more rounds, each one more controlled than the last. By the end of the first magazine, she was grouping shots within a 6-inch radius. Good, Casimir said. Natural talent or repressed rage? Both. They spent 3 hours on fundamentals. By the end, Lyra's hands ached and her ears rang despite the protection, but she could hit center mass at 15 yards with reasonable consistency. That's enough for today, Casimir said, clearing the weapon. Tomorrow, we'll work on movement and multiple targets. Why tomorrow? I can keep going. Because I need you functional, not exhausted. There's a difference. Back upstairs, Lyra found Victor waiting in the library, expensive vodka already poured. Dr. Vale, I hear you're learning to shoot. Casimir's influence, I assume. My choice. I'm tired of being vulnerable. Vulnerability is illusion. Power is what matters. Victor gestured to a chair. Sit. We should discuss your role in organization after wedding. I thought we already discussed that. I provide medical services as needed. That was before you decided to arm yourself. Now we need to recalibrate expectations. Victor's smile was predatory. Woman who can shoot is more valuable than woman who only heals, especially woman married to my heir. I'm not becoming an enforcer. No, but you will attend certain meetings, observe certain operations. Your medical expertise combined with first-hand knowledge of our methods makes you ideal advisor for strategic decisions involving casualties. Lyra's stomach turned. You want me to help you plan violence more efficiently. I want you to help us minimize our own casualties while maximizing enemy losses. That's strategy, not violence. That's the same thing with different words. Words matter, Doctor. They shape how we understand our actions. Victor leaned forward. You're going to witness terrible things as part of this family. You can frame those things as necessary strategy or senseless violence. One framework allows you to sleep at night. The other destroys you slowly. Choose wisely. And if I refuse to participate in planning, then you become liability instead of asset. And we've already discussed what happens to liabilities. Victor stood, conversation over. Wedding is in 3 days. Dmitri will attend remotely via video. Other family members arrive tomorrow. I suggest you prepare yourself mentally for scrutiny. They'll be evaluating whether you're worthy of Volkov's name. After he left, Lyra sat in the library trying to process how completely her life had transformed. 3 weeks ago, she was a trauma surgeon saving lives in Chicago Memorial. Now she was learning to shoot while discussing strategic casualty planning with a crime lord who'd murdered his own wife. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Final offer. We can extract you during the wedding. 1 word and it's done. Reeves. How did Reeves keep getting through? How did the FBI have access to Victor's secure systems? Unless they didn't. Unless someone inside was feeding them information. Lyra deleted the message without responding, mind already racing through possibilities. Who had access to her phone number and reason to help federal agents? Who wanted her out of the Volkov family badly enough to risk Victor's wrath? The answer came as she was leaving the library. Dmitri. It had to be Dmitri. He'd warned her, told her to run. And when she'd chosen to stay, he'd taken matters into his own hands. Lyra made her way to her room, locked the door, and called Dmitri's number. He answered on the second ring. Dr. Vale, to what do I owe the pleasure? You're working with the FBI. Silence. Then Dmitri laughed, the sound wrong and mechanical. What makes you think that? Because Agent Reeves keeps contacting me on numbers only family has access to. Because you're the one who told me to run. Because you're the only person in this organization who has nothing left to lose. Interesting theory, completely unprovable, of course. I don't need proof. I need to know if you're trying to save me or use me. More silence. Then Dmitri's voice went cold. Both. I'm trying to save you by using you. The FBI wants inside information on Victor's operations. I want revenge for what he did to me. You want freedom. Everyone wins except Father. And Casimir? What happens to him when Victor's empire collapses? Casimir made his choice when he chose you over loyalty. Now he gets to live with consequences, just like I did when I questioned Father's orders and ended up paralyzed. Lyra's hands shook. I'm not helping you destroy him. Then you're helping Victor destroy you. There's no middle ground, Doctor. You're either with me or against me. And if you're against me, I'll make sure Reeves knows you're not interested in federal protection, that you've chosen to become complicit in Volkov operations. How do you think that plays out? That's blackmail. That's strategy. Same thing Father taught us both. Dmitri's breathing came through the phone, labored and wrong. Wedding's in 3 days. During ceremony, Reeves will create distraction. You slip out with his team. Casimir gets arrested for weapons trafficking. Victor loses his heir and his control. Organization implodes. You get new life far away from all this. And Casimir goes to prison. Better prison than death, which is where he's headed if he stays with Victor. You know it's true. Lyra's mind raced. Dmitri was right about the trajectory. Casimir was on collision course with his father. Either he'd submit completely and become Victor 2.0, or he'd rebel and get eliminated. There was no third option in Victor's worldview, but using federal intervention to destroy the man she loved, even to save him, felt like ultimate betrayal. I need to think about this, she said. You have 72 hours. After wedding, offer expires. And Lyra, don't tell Casimir. He'll choose Victor over you if forced. He always does. That's how Father raised him. Dmitri hung up before she could respond. Lyra sat on the bed, phone clutched in shaking hands, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressed down. Help Dmitri betray Victor and destroy Casimir's life, or stay silent and watch both of them slowly poison each other while dragging her along. There had to be third option, some way to navigate between destruction and complicity. She just had to find it before the wedding. The next day brought Victor's extended family, cousins, lieutenants, business associates who operated in gray areas between legitimate and criminal. They arrived in expensive cars, wearing expensive clothes, smiling with expensive teeth while assessing Lyra like livestock at auction. Casimir stayed close, introducing her with possessive pride. This is Lyra, my fiancée. She's a surgeon, saved Mikhail Sokolov's life last month. Each introduction came with calculating stares, questions about her background, her family, her intentions. Everyone trying to determine if she was asset or liability, genuine or opportunistic. One of Victor's nephews, Alexei, maybe 30, with eyes like a shark, cornered her during lunch. You're very beautiful, Dr. Vale. My uncle has excellent taste in acquisitions. I'm not an acquisition. I'm a person. In this family, everyone's an acquisition. Some are just more expensive than others. Alexei's smile was all teeth. Tell me, what does a trauma surgeon see in a criminal? The danger, the money? Or are you just another broken woman looking for man to fix you? Casimir appeared before Lyra could respond, hand settling on Alexei's shoulder with unmistakable threat. Careful, you're talking about my wife. Not wife yet, just woman carrying your child. There's difference. Not to me. Casimir's voice dropped to lethal calm. Apologize. Now. Alexei held his stare for 3 seconds, then laughed and raised his hands. Just testing her spine, cousin. No offense meant. Offense taken anyway. Get out. After Alexei left, Casimir pulled Lyra aside. You okay? I'm fine. Is it always like this? Everyone trying to find weakness? Always. It's how we determine hierarchy. Who's strong? Who's vulnerable? Who needs to be eliminated before they become problem? His hand cupped her face. But you're not vulnerable anymore. You just don't know it yet. That night, Casimir took her back to the shooting range. This time he introduced defensive tactics, how to move under fire, how to use cover effectively, how to shoot while advancing or retreating. Combat isn't about accuracy. It's about aggression and speed. He demonstrated, moving through obstacle course with fluid violence. You make yourself hard target while putting rounds downrange. Enemies pinned, you maneuver, you end the threat. Lyra tried to replicate his movements. Failed. Tried again. Failed better. Again. She ran the course 6 times before her legs gave out, collapsing against concrete barrier while her lungs burned. That's enough, Casimir said, kneeling beside her. You did good. I'm exhausted. You're adapting. There's difference. He helped her up, supporting her weight. Tomorrow we'll work on hand-to-hand. If someone gets close enough that you can't shoot, you need other options. How many people have you killed, Casimir? The question came out before Lyra could stop it. Casimir went still, expression unreadable. Why do you want to know? Because I'm marrying you in 2 days, and I need to understand what that means. He was quiet for a long time, staring at nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, empty. 17. That I've personally executed. Hundreds more that I've ordered. Thousands, if you count the indirect consequences of decisions I've made. He met her eyes. Does that change things? Lyra wanted to say yes, wanted to be horrified, but the truth was she'd already known the number was high. Hearing it confirmed just made the abstraction concrete. I don't know, she admitted. I'm still trying to figure out who I am now that I'm not the person I used to be. You're still you, just with better situational awareness and worse company. Despite everything, Lyra almost smiled. That's one way to frame it. They walked back to the main house in silence. In her room, Lyra found wedding dress hanging in the closet. White silk, elegant, expensive. The kind of dress she'd imagined wearing someday when she got married to someone normal in a normal ceremony surrounded by normal people. This wasn't that dress. This was costume for performance she'd agreed to give. Her phone buzzed. Dmitri again. Reeves confirmed for day after tomorrow, 8 p.m. during ceremony. Be ready to move fast. Delete this message. Lyra deleted it, then sat on the bed trying to decide if she was really going to betray everyone she'd become entangled with. The answer still wouldn't come. The morning of the wedding, Lyra woke to find Casimir already gone. Note on the pillow, getting everything ready. I'll see you at the ceremony. I love you. K. She showered, trying to wash away the feeling of walking toward her own execution. Victor's staff appeared with makeup, hairstyling, jewelry she didn't want. They transformed her into bride who looked nothing like the exhausted trauma surgeon she'd been 3 weeks ago. The woman in the mirror was stranger, beautiful and cold, and already halfway to becoming someone else entirely. At 7:30, Victor knocked on her door. May I come in? Lyra nodded, not trusting her voice. He entered, closing the door behind him. For a long moment, he just studied her, expression unreadable. You look like Irina, he said finally. Casimir's mother, the day we married. Did you love her? I thought I did. But love in this family is complicated. We mistake possession for affection, control for care. Victor moved to the window. I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone, including Casimir. Why? Because you're going to be part of this family in 30 minutes, and you deserve to understand what that means. He turned to face her. I didn't have Irina committed because she tried to leave. I had her committed because I caught her trying to take Casimir with her. She was going to disappear with my heir, remove him from my influence, raise him to be weak. Lyra's blood went cold. So you destroyed her. I protected my legacy. There's difference. Victor's expression remained neutral. And when she persisted, when she tried to contact Casimir after release, I made sure she couldn't persist anymore. Not because I'm cruel, because I'm practical. Threats to dynasty get eliminated. Always. Why are you telling me this? Because you're carrying my grandchild. And if you ever try to remove that child from family influence, I will do to you exactly what I did to Irina. No hesitation, no mercy, no second chances. He moved closer, and Lyra fought the urge to step back. But if you accept your role, if you raise that child to understand family loyalty and organizational necessity, then you'll have everything you need: protection, resources, a husband who genuinely loves you. That's not love, that's negotiation. In this family, they're the same thing. Victor checked his watch. Ceremony starts in 25 minutes. I suggest you prepare mentally. After today, there's no going back. You'll be Lyra Volkov, and that name carries weight you can't yet comprehend. He left, closing the door with controlled precision. Lyra stood in wedding dress that felt like straitjacket, mind racing through Dmitri's offer, FBI extraction, new identity, freedom from Victor's threats, but also Casimir in prison. The organization imploded, thousands of people affected by the power vacuum, and her child growing up knowing she'd betrayed its father. The choice still wouldn't crystallize. At 7:55, a knock on the door, one of Victor's guards. It's time, Dr. Vale. Lyra followed him downstairs to the estate's chapel. Small room, maybe 30 people, all Victor's inner circle. Casimir stood at the altar in expensive suit, looking like he hadn't slept but was trying to hide it. When their eyes met, something in his expression made Lyra's chest ache. He looked terrified and hopeful in equal measure, like he couldn't believe she was actually going through with this. The ceremony began. Victor officiated. Of course he did, maintaining control even over this, speaking in Russian and English about family and loyalty and dynasty. Lyra barely heard it. She was too focused on watching doors, waiting for Dmitri's distraction, trying to decide in real time if she was really going to run. Then Casimir was saying vows, words about protection and partnership and building something real in a world of violence. And Lyra was responding with her own vows, voice steady despite her racing heart. The ring slid onto her finger, cool metal, expensive, binding. You may kiss the bride, Victor said. Casimir pulled her close, kissed her with desperate intensity, like he knew this might be the last moment before everything changed. He was right. The explosion came at 8:03 Pasatin, not inside the chapel. Outside, somewhere on the grounds. Massive detonation that shook the building's foundation and shattered windows. Everyone dropped. Casimir covered Lyra with his body while Victor barked orders in Russian. Guards flooded the room, weapons drawn. Serbian assault, one of them reported. Multiple vehicles breaching perimeter, heavy weapons. Victor's expression went cold, calculating. Defensive positions. Get everyone to the safe room. But Casimir was already moving, pulling Lyra toward a side exit. This way, now. The safe room's the other direction. The safe room's a trap if they've planned this properly. We're leaving. He had his weapon out, checking corners with practiced efficiency. They made it to the garage where armored SUVs waited. Casimir shoved Lyra into one, climbed into the driver's seat, and accelerated hard while gunfire erupted behind them. What's happening? Lyra demanded. Either the Serbians got extremely lucky with timing or someone tipped them off about the wedding. Casimir took a corner too fast, tires screaming. Either way, we need distance between us and that compound before... The second explosion hit the main house. Lyra watched through the rear window as Victor's estate erupted in flames and smoke. Your father has survived worse. He'll be fine. Casimir's jaw clenched. Right now, I'm more concerned about getting you somewhere safe. They drove for 20 minutes, weaving through back roads while Casimir made constant phone calls in Russian. Finally, he pulled into an underground parking garage in Chicago's financial district. Where are we? Lyra asked. Safe house, one Victor doesn't know about. Casimir led her to an elevator that required both keycard and biometric scan. I've been building contingencies for years just in case Father and I ever had final disagreement. This is that disagreement? This is the beginning of it. The safe house was minimalist. Secure communications, weapons cache, supplies for extended siege. Casimir immediately pulled up security feeds, checking multiple angles on Victor's estate. Fuck, he muttered, watching screens. What? Victor's alive. So is most of his inner circle. But the Serbians knew exactly where to hit and when. Someone gave them detailed intelligence about the wedding. Lyra's blood froze. Casimir os boasir aposkamasam. And the FBI's on scene, moving through the wreckage like they knew exactly where to look. His eyes found hers. This wasn't just Serbian assault. This was coordinated operation involving federal agents. Someone inside our organization set this up. Casimir, I need to tell you something. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dmitri. Change of plans. Meet Reeves at Navy Pier, North Entrance, 9 p.m. Come alone. This is only extraction window you'll get. D. Casimir saw the message before she could delete it. His expression went completely blank. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been working with my brother to betray my father? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Lyra? Because from where I'm standing, you've been coordinating with Dmitri and the FBI to destroy my family while pretending to marry into it. His voice was deadly calm. So I'll ask again. How long? Lyra's hand shook. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Dmitri contacted me, said he could get me out. That federal protection was my only real option. And you didn't think to mention this? I didn't agree to anything. I was just keeping options open. Keeping options open. Casimir laughed, bitter and wrong. You stood in front of my father and said vows while planning to disappear with FBI assistance. That's not keeping options open. That's lying to everyone, including yourself. I'm trying to survive. That's all I've been doing since the night I met you. By betraying me? By working with my brother to destroy everything I've built? You've built an empire on violence and trafficking. Maybe it deserves to be destroyed. The words hung between them like drawn weapons. Casimir's expression shifted into something cold, remote. The man who'd killed 17 people personally and ordered hundreds more. Get out, he said quietly. Casimir, get the fuck out. Go to Navy Pier. Meet Reeves. Get your new identity and your federal protection. Live whatever normal life you think you deserve. His hand moved to his weapon. But understand this. If I see you again, I won't be able to stop myself from making decisions I'll regret. So leave. Now. While I'm still capable of letting you. Lyra stood, legs barely supporting her. What about the baby? That's your choice too. Keep it, abort it, give it to federal handlers to raise. I don't care anymore. But his eyes said he cared desperately. You made your decision when you started talking to Dmitri. Now live with it. She wanted to argue, to explain, to somehow fix the catastrophic destruction of the one genuine connection she'd made in this nightmare. But Casimir had already turned away, focusing on security monitors like she'd ceased to exist. Lyra grabbed her phone and walked toward the elevator on legs that felt disconnected from her body. Behind her, she heard Casimir make a phone call in Russian, giving orders, mobilizing resources, becoming Victor's son again, now that the illusion of something different had shattered. She rode the elevator down in numb silence, emerged onto Chicago streets that looked exactly the same but felt fundamentally different. Free, technically. Unguarded. Able to walk wherever she wanted. Except she didn't know where to go. Navy Pier was 40 minutes by taxi. Lyra paid with cash Casimir had given her weeks ago, back when he was still trying to make her comfortable in captivity, and walked toward the north entrance where Reeves supposedly waited. The pier was mostly empty this late. Tourist season winding down. Just scattered couples and late-night joggers. Lyra found Reeves near the Shakespeare Theater. Tall, maybe 50, with the professional weariness of someone who'd spent too long chasing criminals. Dr. Vale, thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice. You always have choice. That's what this is about. Reeves gestured toward a waiting sedan. We need to move quickly. Victor's people will be looking for you soon. What happened at the estate? Was that you? That was Dimitri's plan. Create chaos. Arrest Victor's lieutenants. Dismantle the organization from the inside. Reeves opened the car door. Your collateral benefit. Someone who can testify about medical procedures performed on criminal organization members. I won't testify against Casimir. You won't have to. We have him on weapons trafficking charges separate from your involvement. He's going down whether you cooperate or not. Lyra's stomach turned. How long? Prison sentence? 25 to life if we can make all charges stick. 25 years. Casimir would be in his 50s when he got out. The baby would be grown. An entire lifetime destroyed because Lyra had tried to keep her options open. I can't do this, she said. Dr. Vale, I can't send him to prison. I can't destroy his life while pretending it's salvation. I just can't. Reeves's expression hardened. Then what can you do? Because right now you're pregnant, wanted by Serbian Mafia, and married to a criminal who just kicked you out. What's your alternative plan? Lyra didn't have one. Hadn't had one since the night Casimir's hand closed around her wrist and her entire future derailed. But she knew she wasn't getting in that sedan, wasn't disappearing into federal protection while the man she loved rotted in prison, wasn't going to let Dimitri's revenge destroy the only real thing she'd found in years of saving lives that didn't matter to the people dying. I'm going back, she said. To what? He threw you out. To fix this, to stop whatever chain reaction Dimitri started. Lyra backed away from the car. Tell Dimitri his plan failed. Tell him I'm choosing different option. There is no different option. That's the point. Then I'll make one. She turned and ran before Reeves could stop her, disappearing into Chicago's streets while her mind raced through impossible scenarios. She needed to warn Victor, needed to tell Casimir that she hadn't actually betrayed him, needed to somehow prevent the complete destruction of everyone she'd become entangled with. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. If you want to save Casimir, come to the warehouse district. Pier 47. Come alone. You have 1 hour. V. Victor. Somehow he'd gotten her current number. Somehow he knew exactly what was happening. Because of course he did. Victor knew everything. Had planned for everything, including this. Lyra hailed another taxi, gave the address, and rode through the city while her wedding dress collected grime and her mind raced. 1 hour. That's all she had to fix the catastrophic mess she'd made by trying to keep escape routes open. The warehouse district was industrial decay. Abandoned buildings, broken streetlights, the kind of place where bodies got discovered weeks after murder. Pier 47 was darker than the rest, isolated against Lake Michigan's black water. Victor waited inside, surrounded by guards, expression cold. Dr. Vale, or should I say Mrs. Volkov now, though I suspect that name won't last much longer. Where's Casimir's? Safe. For the moment. Whether he stays that way depends entirely on what you do next. Victor gestured, and guards dragged someone forward. Dimitri, bloodied, beaten, but alive. Barely. Your co-conspirator, Victor said. My son who betrayed family for revenge, who coordinated with federal agents to destroy everything I've built, who used you as weapon against his own brother. Victor, please. Please what? Please forgive him? Please understand that his actions have consequences? Victor's hand moved with casual violence, striking Dimitri across the face. I gave him everything, purpose after injury, continued existence despite paralysis, and he repays me with treachery. He repays you for arranging the shooting that put him in that wheelchair, Lyra said, voice shaking. He told me about how you eliminated him when he became obstacle. Victor's expression didn't change. And you believed him, because you wanted to believe I'm monster. It makes your choices easier to justify. Are you saying it's not true? I'm saying truth is complicated. Yes, I knew the Serbians planned to target Dimitri. No, I didn't stop them. Because he was making decisions that endangered entire organization. But I also ensured medical care that saved his life, funded rehabilitation, maintained his position despite paralysis. Victor moved closer to Dimitri's broken form. Family is complicated, Dr. Vale. Sometimes protecting it requires sacrificing parts you love. Like you sacrificed Irina. Like I sacrificed everyone who threatened dynasty, including my own wife when necessary, including my son if required. He pulled out a weapon, pressed it against Dimitri's temple, and now including the traitor who coordinated tonight's assault. Don't! Lyra stepped forward. Please. He's your son. He was my son. Now he's just failed insurance policy. Victor's finger moved to the trigger. Last words, Dimitri? Any final wisdom to share? Dimitri's eyes found Lyra's. Blood bubbled at his lips when he spoke. Run. He'll kill you too. Eventually. Everyone who gets close to this family. Victor pulled the trigger. The sound echoed across empty warehouse while Dimitri's body collapsed. Lyra screamed, lunging forward, but guards caught her before she could reach the corpse. You killed him. You killed your own son. I eliminated threat to organizational security. There's difference. Victor calmly holstered his weapon. And now we discuss your future. Because you have choice to make, Mrs. Volkov. What choice? You'll kill me too if I don't comply. No, I'll kill Casimir. Victor gestured, and more guards appeared, dragging Casimir into view. Bloodied, restrained, but alive. Your husband spent the last hour trying to find you, to warn you that I'd discovered Dimitri's betrayal, to somehow save you from consequences of actions neither of you fully understood. Very romantic. Also, very stupid. Let him go, Lyra pleaded. This isn't his fault. It's entirely his fault. He chose you over loyalty. That weakness led directly to tonight's attack, to federal agents on my property, to my own son's betrayal. Victor moved to Casimir, studying him with cold assessment. But I'm willing to forgive, to rebuild, to give you both another chance, under one condition. What condition? Victor pulled out a second weapon, handed it to Lyra. Prove your loyalty. Prove you're worthy of Volkov name. Prove you'll do whatever necessary to protect family. He pointed at Agent Reeves, who guards were dragging through a side entrance. Kill the federal agent, right now, in front of me, and I'll let you and Casimir live. Refuse, and I'll execute him where he kneels. Lyra stared at the weapon in her shaking hands, at Reeves struggling against restraints, at Casimir whose eyes held desperate message she couldn't decode. I can't. You can. You've learned to shoot. Casimir taught you. Now demonstrate that education. Victor's voice was patient, reasonable, monstrous. Pull trigger. End threat to family. Become one of us completely. I'm a doctor. I save lives. You're my son's wife. You protect family. That's your life now. Victor moved behind Casimir, pressed weapon against the back of his skull. Choose quickly. I'm not patient, man. Lyra's hands trembled, finger resting against trigger guard. Reeves stared at her with exhausted understanding. Don't, Reeves said. Don't let him make you into this. You're better than... Silence. Victor hit him casually. Dr. Vale, I'm counting to 3. 1. Lyra raised the weapon, sighted on Reeves, her medical training screaming about trajectory, about where to aim to end life quickly. 2. Casimir's eyes met hers across the warehouse, pleading, desperate, loving her enough to hate what she was about to become. 3. Lyra turned and fired, not at Reeves, at Victor. The shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him away from Casimir. Chaos erupted instantly, guards raising weapons, Casimir lunging for Victor's dropped gun, Lyra firing again and again until her magazine clicked empty. She hit 2 guards before the return fire started. Casimir was moving, shooting with lethal precision while screaming at her to get down. Lyra dropped, scrambling toward cover while bullets tore through air where she'd been standing. Her ears rang, her heart hammered. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. This was what combat actually felt like. Not the controlled environment of the shooting range, but pure chaos where any second could mean death. Casimir reached her, dragging her behind concrete pillar while reloading. You just shot my father. You understand what that means? I understand I wasn't going to murder someone on his orders. I understand I'm done being controlled. Lyra grabbed the fallen guard's weapon, checked it like Casimir had taught her. What do we do now? We survive the next 5 minutes. Then we'll worry about the rest of our lives. More gunfire, more bodies dropping. Victor's guards were professionals, but Casimir had an element of surprise and desperation driving him. The firefight lasted 3 minutes that felt like hours. When it ended, 7 men were dead. Victor was gone, wounded but mobile, disappeared into the warehouse's maze of shipping containers with his remaining security. Reeves was also gone, having used the chaos to escape his restraints and flee. Dimitri's body remained where it fell, already cooling, and Lyra stood in her wedding dress, covered in blood and gunpowder residue, holding smoking weapon while her new husband assessed their impossible situation. We need to leave, Casimir said. Victor will regroup, call reinforcements. This location's compromised. Where do we go? Anywhere but here. He grabbed her hand. Come on. They ran through the warehouse district while sirens wailed in the distance. Found Casimir's car hidden 3 blocks away. Climbed inside and drove while Chicago's skyline faded behind them. I'm sorry, Lyra said. For Dmitri. For everything. Don't. Not yet. We're not safe enough for grief. Casimir's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. You shot Victor. My father. You understand there's no coming back from that? I understand I chose you. Finally. Completely. Even though it means war with your father and life on the run and raising this baby in hiding. You're sure? Because once we cross state lines, that's it. We're fugitives. Wanted by Victor's organization and probably the FBI now that Reeves knows you were involved in tonight's attack. Lyra looked down at her wedding ring. Still perfect, still expensive, still binding. I'm sure, she said. Casimir's hand found hers, gripped tight. They drove into the night, leaving Chicago burning behind them, while somewhere in the warehouse district, Viktor Volkov clutched his wounded shoulder and made phone calls that would reshape the entire criminal underworld. His son had chosen love over loyalty. His new daughter-in-law had shot him rather than submit. And the dynasty he'd spent 40 years building was about to experience war, unlike anything it had seen. But Victor was smiling as he gave orders. Because war was something he understood. Love had always been the variable that destroyed everything. And now he'd prove that to Casimir and his bride. Prove it in blood and fire and lessons that would haunt them for whatever brief time they had left. The game had changed. But Viktor Volkov had been playing this game longer than anyone. And he never lost. Not to enemies. Not to federal agents. And certainly not to his own son and the doctor fool enough to love him. The real war was just beginning. They drove for 6 hours straight, crossing state lines into Indiana, then Michigan, watching the rear-view mirror for headlights that never appeared but felt inevitable anyway. Lyra watched Chicago disappear in the distance, replaced by flat highways and towns too small to have names she recognized. Her wedding dress was ruined, blood and dirt and cordite staining white silk into something that looked like evidence from a crime scene, which, she supposed, it was. Casimir drove with mechanical focus, hands steady on the wheel despite the fact that he'd just survived a firefight with his own father's men. Every few miles he'd glance at her, checking to make sure she was still there, still real, still breathing. Around dawn, they stopped at a motel outside Grand Rapids, the kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. Casimir paid for a week up front, using bills from a go-bag he'd apparently kept in the car for exactly this scenario. Inside the room, Lyra finally peeled off the wedding dress, stood in the shower until the water ran cold, watching pink-tinged liquid circle the drain. When she emerged, Casimir had laid out clothes from the same go-bag, generic jeans, plain shirt, nothing that would attract attention. How long have you been planning this? She asked. Planning what? The escape, the contingencies, the safe house Victor doesn't know about, and the go-bag, and the cash. Lyra pulled on the clothes, drowning in fabric sized for Casimir's frame. How long have you known this was coming? Casimir sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Blood still stained his knuckles. Since Dmitri got shot. Maybe before. Victor's been building towards something for years. Eliminating anyone who questioned him. Consolidating power. I knew eventually he'd force a choice between loyalty and everything else. His eyes met hers. I just didn't think the choice would involve you. Would you have chosen differently if I wasn't pregnant? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. He stood, moved to the window, checking angles like even here they weren't safe. But you are pregnant, and that changes everything, because I can't let Victor raise another generation the way he raised me and Dmitri. Can't watch him turn our child into weapon the same way he turned us into killers. Lyra's hand went instinctively to her abdomen, still flat, still showing no evidence of the life growing inside. We shot your father. You understand there's no negotiating with him after that? There was never going to be negotiating. Victor doesn't negotiate. He dominates or he destroys. Those are his only modes. Casimir turned from the window, expression exhausted. The question isn't whether he'll come for us. It's when and how prepared we are when he does. So what's the plan? Survive until the baby's born. Get you both somewhere safe. Then I go back and end this. End it how? however necessary. Victor taught me everything he knows about building empires. That includes knowing exactly how to dismantle them. Casimir's voice was flat, empty. I'll use his own systems against him. Release the files. Burn his organization from the inside. Make sure he can't hurt anyone else. That's suicide. You'll be going back alone against his entire network. I'll have help. People who hate Victor almost as much as I do. Former associates he's betrayed. Law enforcement he's crossed. The Serbians who want him dead anyway. He moved closer, hands framing her face. But first I need you safe. That's non-negotiable. Lyra wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could help, could fight, could be more than the person being protected. But exhaustion had eroded her defenses, and the truth was she had no idea how to fight a war against organized crime while pregnant and wanted by everyone. How long do we have? She asked. A week. Maybe 2 if we're careful. Victor's wounded. His organization's in chaos after tonight's assault. He'll need time to rebuild before mounting full offensive. Casimir's thumb traced her cheekbone. We use that time to disappear completely. New identities, new location, new life. People don't just disappear anymore, not with surveillance and databases, and most people don't. But I'm not most people, and I've been preparing for this possibility since I was 20. He pulled out his phone, showed her documents, bank accounts and names she didn't recognize, property deeds in countries she'd never visited, passports with Casimir's face but different names. Victor taught me to always have exit strategy. He just didn't expect me to use it against him. Lyra stared at the evidence of years of contingency planning. You've been ready to run for a decade. I've been ready to survive. Running's just one method. He pocketed the phone. Get some sleep. We'll move again tomorrow night. Keep moving until we're far enough away that Victor's reach doesn't extend. Is there anywhere that far? We'll find out. Lyra collapsed onto the motel bed, body finally giving up after 36 hours of sustained crisis. She expected nightmares, Dimitri's execution, the firefight, Victor's cold assessment of her worth. Instead, she just sank into black nothing and didn't surface until evening. When she woke, Casimir was on the phone speaking rapid Russian. He hung up when he noticed her awake. Problem? She asked. Update. Victor's in the hospital, shoulder surgery, stable but immobile for at least 48 hours. Casimir's expression was unreadable, which means we have more time than expected, and also means he's vulnerable. You're thinking about going back, finishing this while he's wounded. I'm thinking about variables. Victor in a hospital bed changes calculations, makes certain options more viable. Like murdering your father while he's recovering from surgery? Like eliminating the threat permanently instead of running forever? Casimir sat beside her. I know what you're thinking. That I'm becoming him. That violence is my first instinct now. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am exactly what he raised me to be. Or maybe you're trying to protect the people you love the only way you know how. Lyra reached for his hand. I shot Victor too, remember? I'm complicit in whatever happens next. You shot him to save Reeves. That's different. I shot him because I was tired of being controlled. Because some part of me wanted to see if I could actually pull the trigger when it mattered. She met his eyes. We're both different people than we were 3 weeks ago. Question is whether we can live with who we've become. Casimir was quiet for a long time, thumb tracing circles on her palm. I don't know if I can, but I'm willing to try if you are. Then we try together. No more secrets, no more contingency plans you don't share. If we're doing this, we're doing it as actual partners. Deal. He kissed her forehead. Which means I need to tell you something else. Victor's not the only problem we're facing. Lyra's stomach clenched. What do you mean? The FBI is moving. After tonight's raid, they have probable cause to